Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Sunday, the 10th of May, 2026. My name is CareyHolzman, and today another brand new, never before seen mini PC here on the channel. And this is from our friends over at Camrui, and we're looking at more budget line mini PCs. Look, you've basically got four levels of computer. You've got your budget entry level temporary computers. That's what I call them. They're only good for about 3 or 4 years. Very inexpensive, pretty low end, not very upgradable, not repairable. Once you're out of warranty, consider it done and move on. Then you got your mid-range. I'd say that's probably the most popular or highest recommended in my book, most commonly because we're right down the middle, even though there's four different classes: budget, mid-range. That's going to give you your best value for the dollar, in my opinion, and overall in general. So with the price of RAM and SSDs going up, the budget line to the mid-range line is maybe a $75 difference. It almost doesn't make any sense to consider budget anymore, because by spending just a little bit more now, you can get something right down the middle, which is going to be much better equipped, more upgradable, probably more repairable, and just a more capable computer, likely, lasting, I'd say 8 to 12 years, depending on, if it's taken care of. Then you go to high-end computers. So the high-end computers would be your Ultra 7s and 9s. You're looking at somewhere around a starting price of around $600 plus. And then above that, you've got your gaming computers, and those are going to be your ultra high-end, very expensive computers because of the additional graphics card or gaming power, how that's being delivered. If it's built into the CPU, the best graphics card built into a CPU is on the most expensive AMD CPU you can buy. That CPU alone sets you back $1,000. Pretty darn close for like an AI 395 or 470. And still won't give you as good a graphics as a discrete graphics card. But manufacturers such as Minisforum and Ace Magic and others do have built-in graphics as well as discrete graphics models available at a certain price point. But let's face it, who's got money for that? So I would encourage people, if you need a computer, avoid the budget machines now, because the difference between a budget computer and a mid-range computer is really maybe 20% of the cost. And what you're going to get in return is just more than 20% back as far as longevity, the value of it, the performance, even as far as like being upgradable. These things are far more likely in a higher end machine. Those, what's the cheapest computer I can get? Those are disposable computers for the most part. When it breaks, you throw it away, and if you're out of warranty, it's not worth fixing. They cost more to fix, if they're even repairable, than they're worth when they sold new. So for that reason, we were excited when we were offered the opportunity to test this. This is the Camrui Penova. And I'm always thrown by these names, by the way. I was looking on the box because it has like a letter and a number, like P1, Pinova P1. And I went on to Google and I said, let me show you. Let me bring this up on the screen. Let's go to window capture. Check this out. What is a Penova? It is an apple. It's a German apple. It's a breed of apple. Hold on a minute. Is this an Apple clone? No, this is a Windows clone. See, now, if they were making an Apple clone, Penova would be a great name. But I don't know why you're naming a Windows computer after an Apple. But okay, good to know. Good to know. Just a little bit of trivia. This is what happens late at night when I'm up and I can't sleep, and I started thinking, what the heck is a Penova? That name had to come from somewhere, and down the rabbit hole I went. Thank you to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys. They provide us with our license keys. And when I say they provide us, I mean they sell them to us. They don't give them to us. Whenever I need a license key for Windows or Office for myself or for my clients, my business clients, I'm not buying them from Microsoft. I wouldn't do that to my customers and charge them all that money. Not when, look, I'm the tech. Come to me. I'm going to save you money. I'm going to get you taken care of. And we're not going to do a 5-finger discount. We're not going to do anything skirting the law. We get everything legit, but we don't have to do what the masses do. We have inside information. And that inside information is VIP-URCD keys. On this website, we have in our video notes below every live video we do. Let me pull one up here and I'll show you. Right here. Here's a live video from back in March. And if you notice, when you scroll below the video, there's a little box down here that says, there's an option to click on more. Those are the video notes. That's what I keep referring to when I talk about all the links that we're talking about are in the video notes. And there's the links right there for the Office and Windows product keys. I've had people that, I don't know what they're thinking. They won't use my links for some reason, and then they email me and go, I can't find the product. Well, I mean, the reason why we provide the links is so you don't have to go looking for it. Anyway, when you when you go to buy a license key, like in this example on the screen, it needs you to sign in. If you don't have an account, it's free to create one. Once you create your free account, then use the coupon code. If you want to save even more money, type in my name, Carey, just my first name, and hit apply and watch the price change by 25%. Then, once you verified your price got discounted there and your coupon code applied, hit submit order. At that point, you just want to know how you want to pay for it. Do you want to pay with PayPal? That's the first option. Do you want to pay with Visa or MasterCard, Google Pay, etc., etc.? I always choose PayPal. It's just easier. It's just quick. So when I'm looking for product keys, they've got to take PayPal. And a lot of the product key sellers violate PayPal's terms, and that's why they won't take PayPal. It's not that they don't want to, it's PayPal doesn't want their business. So that's a good sign when you see that they take PayPal. That means they've met all of PayPal's requirements. Also, they offer 6 months of free support. So if you have any problems with your license code with activation, or if you have any problems like understanding how to use it, they're there to help you. And the reason why they have you create the account is so that a history is created for you, just like Amazon or Newegg. And you can log in at any time to look up those product keys or those download links that you were sent whenever you purchased it last week or 6 years from now. You can go back and look at your entire purchase history. You can imagine what my purchase history looks like. I got a big long list. The good news is I really don't ever need to go back and look at those keys because, quite frankly, when you're doing a Windows key activation, it stays tied to the motherboard. You can't move it. It's just tied to that board for life. And anytime you want to reinstall Windows, you just reinstall the same, Pro or Home version you had. Tell it you don't have a product key. And when you're done installing, the first time you connect to Windows Update, it says, oh, I know this motherboard serial number. Microsoft's Windows servers know that motherboard serial number was already activated with a key, and it reassigns the key automatically behind the scenes without telling you back to your motherboard or back to the Windows install that you just did, and reactivates it without so much as mentioning it to you. It just happens automatically in the background. No Microsoft account is needed, and I've demonstrated that here many times. Office keys don't work like that, however. That you would definitely want to tie to an online account, Microsoft account, or you better plan on, if it's been a year since you've installed and activated it, you're probably going to need to buy a new key again. One way you can avoid this is to make a backup. Use something like a Cronus or even the Windows imaging tool in the control panel. And if you ever need to reinstall Windows, never do that again. Just restore from your image backup and put everything back, which includes all your activations, unless you restore that image to a different motherboard, which again, all those activations are tied to the serial number of the motherboard. So the minute you change the board, your activations get lost, and you have to, it's like trying to take the license plate off of one car and move it to another car. You're not allowed to do that without paying some money and filling out some forms. Well, in much the same way, there are 2 different versions of Windows and 2 different versions of Office with regards to all of the different iterations of Home versus Pro versus Workstation versus Education. you also have retail versus OEM. So you have all those same flavors in retail that you have in OEM, or many of them, but the retail license key is closer to $200 and above. And with the retail license key, if you want to spend $200 on Windows 11, you can move it, take it off of one. You can't have it on multiple computers at the same time, but you can take it off of one, move it to another. But the fact is, for $200, I'd have to move that 8 times to break even on what these license keys are costing me. If I had to buy a license each time, I'd have to do it at least 8 times before I broke even for the cost that Microsoft wants. So you decide what's the better value for you. All right. So also a shout out to our friend Buster out there in Scotland. Hey, Buster, I understand that, well, first of all, thank you for sending the Amazon gift card. And I know you've had a couple of rough days lately. I hope things are getting better for you here soon. And we look forward to seeing you in our chat room when you feel up to it. In the meantime, get your rest, my friend. And thank you so much for your continued support, as always. Let me say hello to everybody here in the chat room before we get rolling. So I'm going to need my glasses for this. Isaiah says hello. 3D Everything joins us, as well as David Graham and 3D Everything, John Lewis, Michael Lavelle and Gary Tatum. Scott says hello, as well as Sean Skinner, Eddie Casanova, and Richard DeFries. I also see Andrew saying hello, and Andy W6AD also joining us here in the chat, along with Jim Kenny. Maralina, our channel administrator, joining everybody in the chat. She says, thank you for including Sable the cat, and she appreciates it greatly. I don't think the cat gives a rat's behind. Have you met a cat? No, she's a very nice cat. I'm not even a cat person, and that's coming from me. So W.E. Holmes joins us and says hello. There's Brian Weber joining us, as well as Ed's 6460 and David Holly. Welcome in, guys. Good to see you. Brian Weber renews his membership, now a member for 7 months. He says, happy Sunday. Thank you, Brian. Happy Sunday back at you. Dom Parada says hello, as well as Mark Baggett. Andrew C. 2026 with a £1 to super chat. Thank you, Andrew. Dom says it's a gorgeous day up here in upstate New York. Hey, have some buffalo wings for me, would you? Go over to the Anchor Bar, maybe, and one for Carey. Edward Bass says hello, along with Arnold Albert and Boss joining us. Tony Aindow says hello, and David Herzog, Phil Stodd, Luke Greenia, Paul Vercher, Nicholas Barlow, and Mike Gamer, and Stephen DeToit are all hanging out with us in the chat. Why aren't you in there? Come on in and say hello. We're all waiting for you. Pop in while we're live. We love interacting. I love interacting with the audience. And of course, our community here love interacting with each other. So if not for me, do it for yourself. There's brand new friends waiting to meet you. All you got to do is pop in and say hello. We'd love to have you. Getting back to today's review. So Camrui reached out and they said, you know, would you be interested in reviewing this mini PC? And Mara did all this, right? She's communicating with them and telling me what's on the table, what's being offered. And, you know, we checked to see, is this one we've done before? And what's it sell for? And how is it spec'd out? And this falls right into that range I was mentioning earlier, where for the price of a budget mini PC, for just a little bit more, you can get something more right down the middle. So let's take a look at their website over at Camrui and see what they've sent us here. So I'm going to jump over to this website right here. Okay. Well, for some reason, we've got a link to the P2. I don't know Hopefully Mara can fix this. This should be the P1. So instead, we're going to ignore this page. Actually, Penova series P1. That's the E3B. We've covered that before. Doesn't seem to be there. But it is on Amazon. So let's just go to Amazon. Here is the computer, the Camrui Pinova P1. This is a Ryzen R2544. Now, you are going to see some weird Ryzen numbers that are not available on the desktop. And this one is equipped with 16 gigs of RAM, that's DDR4, 512 gig of storage. It supports 3 displays up to 4K at the same time with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which we'll get into what that is specifically, at a price of $339.99.
I don't know if it's just me, but...
Stuttering and video freezing.
Yeah.
Everything looks perfect as far as our stream analytics shows everything's perfect.
Okay.
So if anybody else is having stuttering or freezing issues, please let us know. So yeah, so looking here, the R2544. So let's go back here and type in AMD R2544 release date. Let's see when the CPU came out. This came out 4 years ago, a little less than 4 years ago. It's a 4-core, 8-thread CPU based on the 12mm Zen Plus Picasso architecture, which is designed for embedded, meaning it's soldered down, industrial and thin client solutions, so laptops, mobile platforms. And let's see, it's 35 to 54 watts, clock speed 3.35 base to 3.7 boost. That's not a big boost, but at the same time, it's also not a big price. That also means it's probably easier to keep it cool and probably costs less to run. So we're not looking at, some high-end workhorse, but what we are seeing is something more aligned with the mid-range specifications, but at the upper echelon of budget pricing.
P1 was no longer available on their site. That's why it's linked to the P2, but they're almost exactly the same.
Well, not by price. The P2 on their website shows a price tag of, where did it go? Let me go back.
The Amazon link is
over $150 more.
Yeah, but the Amazon link goes.
But I do see what you're saying. It is the same CPU.
Yeah.
It is the same RAM and storage.
Yeah.
So I wonder why the price is so different. This has a USB Type-C with 2 Type-A's in the front, and then 4 more USB Type-A's in the back. That's always good to see. And over at Amazon, this is a very different looking case, but does it have similar ports? According to this picture, it's got 2 M.2 slots. The DDR4 looks like it's soldered down, doesn't it? That looks soldered down. Well, I don't know. We'll have to open it up and look. Because I'm seeing right down here, I see the fingers, but there's only one DDR4 socket. And as for the ports, there's 4 USB-A's, but there is no USB Type-C on this one. Let me just take a look. There's one in the front, but it does not have one in the back. So they're not identical, the P1 versus the P2, but I can see how one's like a big brother to the other. This is also just Wi-Fi 5, so it's a couple generations behind. Bluetooth 4.2 is a couple generations behind. It just says RJ45 LAN, but doesn't tell us the speed, but I'm going to guess it's probably just a gigabit. Your video outputs are going to be supported through HDMI, DisplayPort, and that single USB Type-C that can be converted to a DisplayPort for a total of 3 monitors. Windows 11 Pro is installed, and I think that's a pretty good deal. So if you price out how much a 512 gig SSD and 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM are, and subtract it from this price right here, I think you'll find there's not much left on the bone for everything else. So that's why I'm saying it. When you're in this position where you want to, get something, it's time to upgrade, and it's just a terrible time to buy. Suddenly, the price difference between the budget and mid-range is so insignificant. Step up to the mid-range. So my goal today is to take a look at this unit and see if I will still recommend it after we have had a chance to look inside and power it up. See if there's anything concerning, or whether or not we say, yeah, worth consideration or not worth consideration. I will say from Camrui, we've seen other machines from them before. When it comes to what Camrui does best is offering value. When we talk about the type of over-the-top support or upgradability, repairability, or style in general, other manufacturers lead in that area, but they cost a lot more. Somehow that money's got to get to, it's got to come from somewhere to pay for all the extra. So Camrui, what they're really known for is stripping away the extra, but still selling a quality machine at a discounted price compared to competitors. Now, if you're aware of a similarly equipped mini PC that sells for the exact same price or less, please tell me. I want to give those companies the time here on the channel, the exposure that they deserve, so that the viewers know that they have options. But at least with Camrui, we worked with them before, and we know pretty much what to expect. And with other manufacturers, if it's somebody we never heard of, will they have the support? Will they have the quality, the build quality that we've seen from companies like Camrui? But that's why I'm saying I'd like to know about them if they exist. So something equal to or better than that CPU with RAM and storage for a price the same or less. If you know of one, please let us know. All right, let's get to our unboxing. Let me move some things over and let's see how this is shipped. The reason I show this live is I want you to understand that if you decide to buy this, I want you to see exactly how it should look in the box. Because if it looks different, you might have been sent a used unit. So unless you ordered a used unit, that would be a big red flag. The second thing is I want to show you live on camera when I unbox it, that I plug it in, that it works. This idea of receiving product that doesn't work has gone away years ago when manufacturing has gone mostly automated and things just don't get damaged as easily, or the mistakes that humans would make on the assembly line because they're tired or they're angry, whatever the reason is, those go away when machines do it. Machines run 24/7. They don't complain, they just work, and they do every job exactly the same. When these machines go through a final quality control check, if they don't pass, they're not going to box it and ship it. There's not enough profit to pay for the box and the shipping just to have you return it. That costs the company a massive amount of financial loss. So if anything gets damaged, it's likely happening in the shipping process. Some people who say things get damaged all the time, that tells me it's your local delivery driver that's, perhaps throwing it over the fence to your front door, which is an excess in violation of handling standards in the shipping industry. So get some cameras and film that, then report it to the shipper. And once that person gets retrained or replaced, suddenly all of your broken items you were receiving go away. And everybody's happier. The people you bought it from are happier, the manufacturer's happier, the shipper's happier, and you're happier to get rid of those bad apples. What you need to understand, though, the greatest likelihood of you receiving multiple damaged items, it's likely the shipper that's bringing it to your house. That part of what we call the last mile of service, it was probably handled correctly the entire way from China to whatever country you're in, to your local area, to your local distribution center. And everybody did their job, usually. But if you've received, we all can get a bad item once in a while, but it should be very, very rare. If it's brand new and it's properly packaged and it's properly handled, these things can take a lot of abuse. In order for this to break in shipping, the abuse has to be excessive. It almost has to be like they're throwing a Hail Mary in the Super Bowl. It's just going to throw it as hard as they can, as far as they can, and hope for the best. Yeah, they're not designed to be replacing a football. However, once that is identified, that the driver is the problem, the delivery person, the companies, they need to know about it ASAP, because it's costing them money, it's making them look bad, and the manufacturers are none too happy about that either. So Most people, they're going to receive their computer no problem. You know, we just sent a mini PC to our friend Frankie B out there in New York. It arrived perfectly, no problems. We sent a laptop with very minimal packaging, just basically the box the laptop shipped in from here to Vermont. It arrived no problems at all, no damage. So that's just using the manufacturer's packing. If I was extra cautious, I'd put another box with even more packing. But you can see from real world examples that I'm giving you that that's overkill and unnecessary unless you have somewhere in the distribution line is mishandling the product. All right, with that, let's unbox, and that's why I say I want you to see what's inside. I want you to see when we turn it on the first time that it works. This is all live, unrehearsed, unscripted reality. So if you decide you want to order one, you should experience the exact same thing we're showing you, and it should take the same amount of time. So plan accordingly. Let's go. I love the idea that you can buy a computer this powerful for $339. My first computer my first Windows compatible computer cost me $1,200. It was a 286-12 that would boost to 16, 4 megs of RAM, 40 meg hard drive. Did come with a monitor. I think it was an amber color monitor, not a color monitor, but just an amber screen, I think. And came with a keyboard and a mouse and some cheap speakers. $1,200. This, $339. Forget the 16 megahertz. This is into the thousands of megahertz. So anyway, it's all perspective, right? I'll keep that here so we're reminded what we're looking at. There's the box, and let's go to close-up camera. Documentation, mini PC. We've got two boxes here. One will have our power brick and the other will have our accessories. So this looks like the accessories box with our laptop style power cable, VESA bracket, screws for the VESA bracket, and a short HDMI cable that you would use if you were going to use the VESA bracket. That's a short cable, and I never use these, they're too short for me. But if you were going to mount that behind your monitor, you don't want a long cable that's just going to hang all the excess slack all over. Makes for a big old nest of wires that's never fun. And this should be our power adapter in here, and it is. There's nothing else in there. And this power adapter, again, just like a laptop, which also has this separate power cord. That means we get nice long cable length out of this. A lot of budget machines, they just give you the power brick that plugs into the wall directly and that can block other outlets. And then you only have the length of one cable. I love having the length of another cable because you can buy this style of cloverleaf or Mickey Mouse, kind of looks like Mickey Mouse, right? Style of power cable on Amazon. They've been available for decades of any length you want pretty much. So that way you don't have to, they're just a couple dollars and you don't have to replace a whole power brick or buy a different surge protector or an adapter. You just buy a longer cable. That's what we do here. I bought a longer cable on Amazon. I think it was 10 bucks for this one. This is a heavy duty cable. I think it's 10 or 12 feet long. So that this way, when I'm reviewing, I can just leave that one alone. But that will be enough cable, you know, to reach where I need it to reach to plug this in. However, and then I have to wrap it all back up and tie it up. And I'd rather just leave it alone because we don't usually keep these. We're usually selling them or, well, we'll end up, because this was sent to us from Camrui, we don't generally sell review units. It kind of depends on the conditions of the manufacturer. There are some exceptions. But for the most part, I need to put it all back in the box regardless. And if I don't have to rewrap a cable and tie it, well, I'll not do that because, you know, we've got spare cables. Let's take a look at what the mini PC looks like here. You do get the warning not to give this internet access until you're at the desktop. Let me bring it up to the camera and I'll show you close up. Interesting design here for ventilation. Power, audio jack, 3.5 millimeter audio, USB-A, USB-A, USB Type-C. Nothing here but vents, nothing here but vents. So you don't want to set this on its side. You don't want to block these vents. Okay, so you really want this flat or mounted vertically using these two brass points here for the VESA mounting. And then you can mount it on a wall, behind a monitor, under your desk. You can have it upside down. It's fine. The rubber feet and the bracket will give it enough space because it's very important air can get in here. That's where your CPU is. On the back, there's your 4 more USB ports. That's plenty of USBs. That's 6 USB Type A's plus the 1 USB Type C. You get the sticker that says, hey, make sure you turn this on and get to your desktop before you plug me in. Unfortunately, that doesn't stop you from connecting to Wi-Fi. And I just will tell you, don't do that until after you get to the desktop. So let's peel the sticker off because that's all routine for us. And then, of course, you've got your HDMI and display port and your barrel style power connector there. And it looks like a Kensington lock right there if you wanted to use what is essentially a bicycle chain. It's a steel cable, and when you turn the key, these little teeth come out and it locks inside of the frame. It's not just in the plastic. You can't just break the plastic. It's in a metal frame that's there to protect from electromagnetic interference or electronic interference. And it doubles as a support structure for an anti-theft device. Those cables are available wherever computer accessories are sold. Amazon certainly has many options, maybe $10, $15. So if you're worried about having this taken off of your desk, like in an area where there's public, or maybe you have roommates or something that you're worried about, that steel cable's a very cheap way to lock it down. And you just take the other end of the cable and wrap it around something that is bolted to the floor, and that ain't going nowhere. All right, let's get this stuff out of the way here. Oh, I should probably go ahead and put this stuff back in the box for right now, just to clear up the desk. Just throw that in there. Okay. Here's the good stuff. This is what we're really most interested in. As for the power supply, let me get my magnifying glasses out here, and let's take a look at what the numbers look like on the back of this. Now, this does not say Camrui on it anywhere, because the power supply is made by a whole different company. So I would get a silver Sharpie, and I would write Kamrui P1, or I'd get my label maker, maybe put it on the side, Kamrui P1, because this is a standard barrel-style power connector, which is used on many electronic devices. But if you plug this into the wrong electronic device, it could burn this up, and it will definitely burn this up if you're going the other way around and you find, let's say you buy this, and then you end up moving in 6 months or 2 years or whenever, and you don't think about it. So you're like, I'm not going to label that. I know what it belongs to. Yeah, give it time, and you're going to quickly forget if these things get separated. And now your job is to put everything back together after a move, or maybe you're redecorating, and you're like, well, this is what most people do. They go, well, that fits, so that must be the right one. No. It's a very common style of connector. And just because it fits doesn't mean it's the right one. And if you want to risk it, just know that if you let out the magic smoke, you'll be needing a new computer. So you can avoid all that right out of the gate. Well, it's fresh on your mind. Go ahead and write Kamrui P1 on this, or get a label maker and write it down. I understand maybe you lose some of the appeal of looking at the power brick on the floor against the wall, if that's important to you. But if you're like, no, I'll remember, good luck with that. Because the older I'm getting, the harder it is to remember anything. But I'll still fool myself. I'll say, oh, I don't need to write that down. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, what was I going to write down anyway? It's gone that quick. This power supply is a 19 volt, 3.42 amp, 64 watt, 65 watt, 64.98. You might as well just say 65 watt. Now, if you didn't take my advice, and now you've got 3 or 4 of these, how do you know which one goes to this? Well, you could look at the numbers on the back, and this says input is 19 volts, 3.42 amps, and this says 19 volts, 3.42 amps. So you could also check the polarity, although it's pretty uncommon for the outside to be positive. Usually the inside is positive. So that's less of a concern. And then finally, as I'm just looking at this for opening it up, we've got our specs right here on this sticker. We've got our contact information for support on this sticker, along with your serial number. And then underneath these rubber feet, I have to guess, would be screws to open this up. So we'll get there, but let's make sure that this works before we open it. You should always, always power up a brand new computer or a computer that's new to you before you do any modification to it, so that if your modification causes a problem, you know who to be angry at. So what I'm saying is, if I turn this on and everything works great, and then we open it up afterwards so we can look at the inside, for whatever reason that we're opening it, doesn't matter. When we put it all back together and it doesn't work anymore, I can't call Camrui and say, hey, you sold me a broken computer. Can I? Because they didn't. It wasn't until I opened it that it broke, so I caused it. That's not a warranty issue if you cause it. In my line of work, I have absolutely had customers that the first thing they do when they get a computer from me is open it up. And I am grossly offended by it. If I just spent all this personalized care and time devoted for a product going to you, it's not different than a chef making a meal specifically the way you want it. As soon as I deliver your meal that I made just for you, without tasting it, you start seasoning it with salt and ketchup. I never want to make anything for you ever again. Get off your butt and go make it yourself. One of the things that I enjoy most is the thrill of excitement and happiness that when I deliver a customer's computer to that client, that we plug it in and turn it on, and oftentimes I will do that. I'll plug it in and get everything wired up for them, and then help them, you know, get anything attached like printers and things like that, with the idea being that all they have to do is use it. If you're ordering a computer from me and the first thing you're doing is opening it up, you should not have ordered a computer from me. Because what you're doing is you're saying everything I did wasn't good enough for you, and that you could do it better. Well, then build it yourself. What are you doing? Why did I waste my time for you to just completely undo my work? That's why it's so offensive. Did you even try it? No. So I've had customers, they open up their machines without so much as turning them on, that I've mailed to them because I can't deliver them personally. And they go, hey, this computer you sold me doesn't work. And I go, well, what happened? They go, well, I changed the RAM and it won't turn on. So, you know, you've got a bad motherboard here. I'm like, well, did it work before you changed the RAM? Well, you sent me a working computer, didn't you? Did. But did you verify it? No. So you don't really know that I sent you a bad motherboard or that you broke the computer. Customers don't like hearing that. They get very defensive and they feel insulted. But honestly, that's what you did. So it's a yes or no question. Did you potentially damage this computer because you couldn't be bothered to verify what I sent you works? Yes or no? It's not a personal attack. I'm not insulting you. We're trying to get to figure out what the source of this problem is and nip it in the bud so it never happens again. This has happened so many times, I couldn't even count. And I'm like, for the love of God, would you please turn the machine on and make sure it works before you unscrew the thing? I don't care if it's a Dell, if you buy it from me. Would you please take a bite of the food before you start seasoning it? Otherwise, I don't want to ever do business with you ever again. You're nothing but a pain in the butt. You're creating problems and costing me money. That's so disrespectful. It's so self-centered and selfish. And you might say, hey, I bought that. It's mine now. It's not yours. Then I say, good. Then you support it. Because now you're asking me to spend my time and my money on something I sold at the most lowest profit margin possible. In some cases, I lose money only to then be rewarded by, I need help. Why do you need help? Because what you sent me is broken. No, what I sent you is not broken. I wouldn't have sent it. You think I'd send a broken computer? Well, all I know is my computer's broken. So you got it, and what happened? Well, first thing I did is I changed out the RAM. Why didn't you either send me the RAM you wanted to use and let me do it? Or why didn't you just have me put the RAM in you wanted to begin with? That's the whole point of my job. That is the entire point of what I'm doing. And if you're not benefiting from that, why are you ordering from me? Stop. Do us both a favor. Stop. If you're the kind of person that's going to do that, you need to build your own computer. Don't ask somebody to build your computer for you and then turn around and before you've even turned it on, take it apart. I cannot tell you how offensive that is. And it's like, well, you know, why do you take it personally, Carey? I paid you the money, you made the sale. Good. But that sale includes free support. But that support is not intended to be fixing your errors. That is only for fixing my errors. And if you never plugged it in and verified it worked, then you don't know, and nor do I, did something happen in shipping because you never, God forbid you took 5 minutes to plug it in and turn it on because you're so busy. Right? This is how angry I get about it. You were just too busy to take a second to make sure it works. So before we take this apart, I'm going to make sure it works. It's a long way to get there, but that's why I'm doing it in this order. And I know what I'm doing, right? Most of the time. And even I make mistakes, but at least I'll know if I've made a mistake that it was my mistake and not Camrui's before I start getting angry and throwing blame. It'd be like me blaming you because I spilled a glass of milk and I say it's your fault. You're going to get defenses about that. What are you talking about? I'm not even there. Well, all I'm telling you is the milk I bought from you spilled when I poured it. What's that got to do with me? Did the container break? Yeah, sure. I need somebody else to take responsibility for my actions, and I'm going to be angry and offended that you're trying to scam me because you're a ripoff artist, because what you sold me didn't work. It's like, oh boy. Being wrongfully accused of doing something I didn't do, I think anybody would feel offended. So that's why I have such a strong opinion on that. It's happened so many times. So now it's kind of boilerplate for me to say, please, before you do anything, plug it in and turn it on and make sure it works first. Other than that, please don't make any changes. And if you do, there won't be much I can do to help you unless you want to mail it back. If you want to mail it back to me, and you want to spend all that money and all that time to ship it back to me, I will look at it and reset it under warranty one time only. And then we'll pay to ship it again back over to you. And then let's see if you learned your lesson or not. Because after that, if you need to send it back, I'm going to charge you for it. Unless it's an actual warranty issue. So you don't want that. I don't want that. You want a working computer? Leave it alone. Or at least verify everything works so that when you bother it, when you modify it for any reason, if it doesn't boot up anymore, or if there's starting to crash, or if the fans are getting loud, if something is different as a result, that you now know you have a reference point. Here's what it was like before you did that. Here's what it's like after. And if you're doing that to learn, then you figure out how to fix it, because That was the whole point of why you did it, was to learn. So why would you come to me to fix the mess you made when the reason you made it was to learn? I'm not helping you learn if I take care of it for you. On the other hand, if you didn't do it to learn and you just did it because, then at some point I've got to put my foot down and say, I have to charge you because this isn't my fault and you're expecting me to cover your mistakes under my, like you expect me to pay for your mistakes. There's not enough profit in this to pay for your mistakes. Just a phone call alone or just an email with a support question, that's my time. And I don't mind answering questions. But after a certain number of questions, I'm going to put my foot down and go, hey, this did not include free tutoring. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a nice guy, but you know, the minute somebody starts leaning heavily on me without paying for it, I'm going to push back and say, you know, I'm happy to help you further. Let's work out a payment arrangement for further instruction. That's all. You want to see me go out of business? Because that's what an enemy that wanted to see me go out of business would do to me. They would intentionally order a computer from me and then be the biggest pain in the butt possible, consuming as much of my free time as I'm willing to give them until I have to become the jerk and say, no more of this. And they can, oh, I'm going to complain and I'm going to do this because you're a monster, blah, blah, blah. On a machine I likely sold at a loss. Why would I do that? I'd rather throw the machine in the garbage can than deal with that, because that'll cost me less in the long run. So be a good customer. And with good customers, I bend over backwards to take care of them. I give them great deals. I answer their questions quickly, and they don't exploit me to, you know, to my limit, because that's so disrespectful. But when there are legitimate concerns, obviously I take care of it. You know, if something did arrive damaged, that's a different story altogether. All right, let's get the keyboard and mouse plugged in here. And then let's see, HDMI, power. I think I just need the power cable, and we're ready to give us this first power on test. So let's grab the power cable again, right down here, and give that a shot. And let's turn it on before we modify it, make sure it works. I'll hit the power button, which is somewhere right there. See the power light come on? Let's go over to the streamer, capture the video output, see what that looks like. There's our BIOS screen, and we should be going through our out-of-box experience here, which should be standardized. Should be. Here we go. Interesting that it's taking this long to come up with the out-of-box experience, but that may be loading some drivers or something, factory drivers. So here we've got an international installation of Windows 11, which is slightly different from my version of Windows 11 on my installer, because you see how it says English United States? That tells you that this company is putting on, you know, one ring to rule them all. One Windows, no matter which country we send this mini PC to. If we send it to England, or if we send it to Germany or Spain or France or Italy, Portugal, Russia, etc. It's one install. This install is slightly different in how it appears. Just little screens may, you know, here and there within Windows may not look familiar to you. So I often will wipe these out and put my own copy of Windows on, just for support reasons. So if a customer has a question and they're saying, how come it says English US instead of just English? I'll be like, what are you talking about? Mine doesn't do that. So what I'll often do is go ahead and do my install of Windows 11. So when the customer does ask a question, I'm not dumbfounded. Okay. But otherwise, it's a fine copy of Windows 11. You don't have to worry about doing it, changing it, unless you're in my position of support and you don't want to support 6 different versions of Windows 11. Let's continue in English. And then let's go to, should be asking us for our region, which is the United States. And remember, we do all this without an internet connection. We have a US keyboard, no secondary language keyboard. Wants to connect to the network, we choose I don't have internet down there. Accept the license agreement. Should ask us for a username. I'll put in the name user. No. Guess I need to turn the keyboard on. User, there it goes. With a blank password, that'll take us right to the desktop every time we reboot. And then that's going to finalize our install for us. There should be no bloatware. There should be, no antivirus from third parties like Norton McAfee, like the old days. No trial software. None of that should be on here. And we'll verify that we have a nice clean Windows 11 install. But what it will have is all the drivers installed. Versus if you wipe it yourself, you better get your own drivers. And we're going to cover that as well. Where do we get the drivers? And in just a moment, we're going to get to the desktop. And while we're waiting, I guess I'll find my Ethernet cable down here on the floor. Here it is. And we'll get ready to plug it into the network. Or connect it to Wi-Fi, whatever you want to do. The machine's really quiet. It's definitely no speed demon. I mean, this thing is not a rocket ship, but it's respectable. So at least so far, it's not. I'm not being blown away by its performance, but I'm also not disappointed by it yet. I have been recently working on some higher end machines, so I'm a little accustomed to this process happening maybe 20 seconds faster, 30 seconds faster. I'd have to actually measure it, but it just felt a little slower, but it's also less expensive. But at the same time, until we open it up and see what kind of specs it's got in there, like we have to determine how fast is the NVMe, what other aspect could be affecting the performance besides the CPU. Now, if you look at the bottom right corner, you'll see that little globe down here, and that tells us we're not connected. So if I plug the Ethernet cable in right now, you should see that globe change to like a little monitor with a flashing cable. There it goes. And that tells us it's communicating with the network card. That is communicating through the cable to our router. The router's initializing it and permitting it on our network. And then you'll see all the icons on the start menu fill in based on our region and what's allowed by our government. So that's why those were ghosted before. While we're waiting, let's just go ahead and hit Windows Update right now, because that might take a while. So we'll go to Settings and then Windows Updates. And we'll check for updates. I will turn this on, and I will turn on Advanced Options. These are things that I prefer. You may not. And then I'm going to, oh, it already wants a restart. Okay, well, let's let it restart. Now, every restart should be faster, much faster than that initial sequence that we just went through. That's the setup process, and it does take a moment. Regardless of how much money you spend, that is part of the very first power on process. Again, when somebody orders a computer from me, I do all this for them, so they can literally plug it in and get to work. That's why I get frustrated if, I spend all that time and effort just to have my work undone because they wipe it and reinstall Windows. And I think, well, why did I bother? Why did I even bother? At that point, it's just not an ideal customer for me. Because if you just wanted to buy a box of parts and do it yourself, that's not the line of work I'm in. I can't stop you from doing it, but I strongly discourage not wiping out my work unless you have a damn good reason. And that you should talk to me about it first. That's part of the service you pay for. There might be another way to accomplish what you want. And if you do have to reinstall, then let me help guide you through that. But let me understand why we're doing it, because like I said, there could be a much easier, less invasive way to accomplish your task. So we go ahead and let that reboot. If I right click on the start menu and go to System, we can get some idea of our Windows version and specs. So this will verify our CPU that's installed. It'll verify the RAM that's installed. And if we come down here, we see we've got Windows 11 Pro 24H2. This isn't, not the most recent model of computer. So it's no wonder it doesn't have 25H2 on it yet. Computers that were released before 25H2 came out probably won't have 25H2 on them. And new computers introduced since 25H2 are more than likely going to have 25H2 on them after 6 months of 25H2's initial release date. So we are starting to see 25H2 just now. 25H2 came out in October. We're finally seeing it as installed as the default OS on the newest mini PC models. And if you're wondering, how do I know if my mini PC model, or the one I'm thinking of ordering, will have the latest edition of Windows on it? Whenever that mini PC was introduced, that's likely the version of Windows that was available at that time that's imaged onto that computer. So if that computer just came out, if the company said, hey, there's a brand new model coming out in May of 2026, we'd expect 25H2 on it by now. Doesn't mean that's what we're going to get, but that's what we'd expect. So let's go ahead and do these updates. And then also, while we're waiting, let's take a look at the device manager. So I'm going to come down here, right click, go to device manager, and see who makes the network cards. Also verify there's no errors in here. There should not be. That should only happen if you do it. When the manufacturer does it, everything should be fine. Now we go to network adapters, and we can see we've got a Realtek wireless 802.11ac and a Realtek 1 gig. See how it says GBE? There's no number. So G is gigabit. Without a number, that means 1. If this was a 2.5 gig, it would say as much. But just because it says gigabit, it is by default meaning 1 gigabit. So nothing spectacular there, nor would it make any sense for it to have anything faster, because again, we're more in a mid-range machine, the entry-level mid-range category here. And it wouldn't benefit you to have anything much faster on a machine that's equipped like this. Also, people that would buy such a discounted machine probably don't have the upper echelon of networking cables and routers and switches required to go faster than gigabit. However, on the Wi-Fi side of things, a lot of people running Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6, this is just going to be Wi-Fi 5 here. So this is an older Wi-Fi version. But again, if you're buying very inexpensive computers, I doubt you're plugging into an expensive network. I doubt you have a $5,000 high-end 8K 1000 megahertz screen that you're plugging into a $300 mini PC. You could be, I just doubt it. So that looks good. So while we're installing, let me check our power settings and make sure this thing isn't going to go to sleep on us. There we go, edit the power plan and see what the default settings are. Yeah, I don't want that going to sleep after 5 minutes. Let's let this display turn off after 3 hours of no activity. No reason to put a computer to sleep if it doesn't have batteries. There's no point in it. And then we'll change what the power buttons do and make sure that when I hit the power button, it chooses to shut down. And again, this whole sleep thing is for a laptop. And then when I press the sleep button, there is no sleep button on computers anymore, but I'll just tell it to do nothing for a non-existent button. That's OCD is what that is. Let's see if I can change this resolution. It looks like we're in 4K because everything is a bit fine for me to read. Go to display settings, and let's change that to 1920 by 1080. Perfect. And then the other thing is we'll make sure we're activated, right? Just type here, activation settings, and see if Windows is activated. It is, and it is Windows 11 Pro, fully activated, right out of the box. Plug and play. Now, even though I closed the window, those Windows updates are still running in the background. So if I want to keep an eye on them, I got to go back there, open that up again, and it'll pull up where its progress is. Okay, so let me get back over to the chat room. You know, this Windows backup stuff, hit the 3 dots. Turn off notifications for OneDrive, and then you don't have to worry about being bothered by that. I do hope you are backing up your machine, but that's going to be a you problem if you're not. It's not a Carey problem unless you want to pay Carey. In which case, bring on the problems and bring the checkbook. Personalize this. Let's go to just a Windows 10 theme, just because that's easier on my eyes. And again, I closed the window stupidly instead of going back. So back to Windows Update again. Okay, so while that's running, let's take a look in the chat room. I'll bring camera 1 back, and I'll put camera 1 down in the corner here so we can keep an eye on our tape progress. And here we go. Let's see what everyone's got to say. David Hawley joins us, says hello. Eds6460 says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in, guys. Tony Aindow says hello. W.E. Holmes says agreed. I'd go for the Minisform MS-S1 Max for $600 if I was in the market for a mid-range PC. S1 Max, that's kind of a high-end PC, isn't it? But you're, you know, almost twice the price. You could buy nearly 2 of these for what one of those will cost. So you get what you pay for. Eddie Casanova saying hello. There's Phil Stodd and Paul Vercher. Luke Greenia renews his membership. Now a member 48 months. Look at that. That's awesome. That's 4 years of uninterrupted membership. Thank you so much, Luke. Luke says, and the fun just keeps coming. You got it. It's a lot more fun when you're here too. Mustang Mike says hello. "3D Everything" says to Luke, you made 4 years. I'm right behind you, and 1 more week or so. Nice. Let's bring that competition on. I'm good with it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for supporting us here so we can keep doing this stuff. Andy says, and Andy loves mini PCs in our chat room here. He says, I have never received a malfunctioning mini PC brand new out of the box. It's never happened. Well, we do it live here to show you how often it happens. So when's the last time you've seen me do a live unboxing, unscripted, unrehearsed, unedited, and something didn't work? I can't think of a time it's ever happened. Montana wants me to look into the BIOS. Okay, we'll do that here as soon as we're done with our updates. Paul Connolly says hello from Monkey. Morning, everyone. I don't know what that means, but welcome in. Good to see you, Paul. Paul, I believe, joins us from Australia. Old Man Timer says hello. Welcome in. Patrick Manny, also a member for 48 months. He says 4 years well spent. Well, thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it very much. You put your money where your mouth is, and you know, you can always tell when somebody is kissing up versus, you know, showing true appreciation. And sometimes it's hard to tell. But when somebody's putting their money where their mouth is, I know they mean it. So that means the world to me, and I can't thank you enough for continuing to support me for that long. It's amazing. Voyage Canada said, I watched the show because 100% real. So I am, oh, he meant to say Monday morning. Happy Monday morning, not monkey. No, I see the typo. All right, autocorrect. I guess Australia is a good 12, 13 hours ahead of us, right? So they're in, he's living in the future. He's living in tomorrow. Let's see. Yes, 100% of the video is real because being raised, we're going to do the whole generational thing here. As Generation X, we're very skeptical and untrusting. My whole generation is very self-reliant. You're on your own. Don't expect help from anybody. And if you want to get somewhere in this world, you can achieve anything you want, but you're going to do it by yourself. You're going to struggle alone, you're going to achieve alone, and you're going to succeed alone. Or fail alone. One thing that's consistent is you're going to be alone, nobody's going to help you, and you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself alone, or you can get off your butt and make things happen. The world is your oyster. You could become, well, look at other Gen Xers like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. You can take over the world, but you're going to have to do it by yourself. So when it comes to watching videos on YouTube, you can imagine people of my generation are watching this scripted, polished, controlled and contrived video content intended to make the video as short as possible. When I was growing up, we used to call that a commercial, and we used to fast forward past them. We used to buy like a device like a TiVo, so it would fast forward through the commercials for us. We'd pay money to not watch those commercials. And now we have a generation that wants to watch commercials. And when you show them something real that's a 2 or 3 hour video, well, why is this video so long? I don't know. Maybe if you could learn a little faster, I could go faster. And the attitude seems to be, wow, you sound like an old man. Why would I need to learn anything? If I need to know something, I just pull it up on my phone. I don't need to know how to read. I don't need to know how to think for myself. I mean, get with it, Carey. What are you, a moron? How would you possibly think on your own when you've got a cellular phone in your pocket that can think for you? It'll write your email replies for you. The AI will give you answers to anything you want to know. So what sort of weird backwards world do you live in, Carey? And you know, the typical response is, well, what happens if you don't have your phone? And then their attitude is, wow, I've never heard anything sound so old as what if you don't have a phone? Come on. What are the odds that's ever going to happen in my lifetime? I don't have a phone. Be real. So between the generations, you know, my generation is going, what a fool that you would leave yourself so vulnerable and dependent. And they're saying, what a fool. This guy's busting his butt, working hard. I'm so glad I'm not that guy, and I don't have to have that, you know, on my mind and take on that responsibility to learn anything. Geez, I'm so lucky I was born when I was, so I'm not like that guy. And that guy is going, I am so glad I wasn't born when you're born, or I'd be like you, and I'd be dependent, and I would be assuming that that dependence will always be there and never be able to be self-reliant ever, because it was never taught to me, and I refused it when it was offered as a waste of my time. Okay, it's their choice. Respect it. And for that reason, this channel isn't for everybody. But it reminds me of the movie Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone, where he wakes up in the future and they're listening to commercial jingles and the top 100 hits on the radio. So they're singing about Oscar Mayer hot dogs like it was Britney Spears. And he's beside himself going, what are you doing? Oh, this is my favorite song. Turn it up. That's a commercial jingle. Yeah, it's number 3 on the charts right now. The person that hears it as a commercial is like, what is wrong with you? And the people that are used to that, because that's what they don't know any better, they go, what's wrong with you? So there's like this weird Twilight Zone effect where each person thinks the other one's in the Twilight Zone without any acceptance or understanding of how we got to where we are. So where I am is based on a start in the 1960s, and where somebody 20 years old is based on a start in the early 2000s. We started at different points. So as a result, we learn different skills. And as a result, we're going to disagree on a lot. And that's okay, but at least I understand what to expect from certain generations and responses. That's how I know how much time it's worth in the answers I provide. Like, I can tell from the first response how they respond, whether or not they're worth any more responses after that. Thankfully, they tend to just go away on their own. We don't usually have to boot them or chastise them. They're usually just not here. They go, what, 3-hour video? Oh no, I don't have time for that. I've got more important things to do, like doom scroll on TikTok. Well, don't let me interrupt you. Please don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. We'll agree. This isn't for you. Bye. So anyway, it's great that we have such a dedicated and loyal audience, but we're always looking to find more people to join our community. There's always room for more. We are absolutely open arms for people that wish to feel welcome in a very kind community here. We're not that elitist group of judgmental, I don't like this, therefore it's a waste of my time. That's fine. You're welcome to think that way. You don't have to tell everybody. You can just keep that to yourself and move along. But yeah, when we get it, we often give it back. So in that case, you might say I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but when people want to behave a certain way, it's just a measure of how much time I'll spend with them. So if you want genuinely more information from me, just show some interest and we'll have a communication that continues back and forth. But the minute you dismiss anything I have to say, then what you're telling me is any further discussion with you is a waste of my time. I'd rather know that sooner than later, but this is what we get on the internet. And that's why I often have to repeat myself so many times, as we get brand new viewers for the very first time. Despite making videos since 2008 here on YouTube, we get brand new viewers every single day. Nearly 50% of the views we get on these videos are from people that have never seen us before. They might be in countries that, with the auto dubbing taking place, that they couldn't understand my videos in English, but now with YouTube's auto dubbing going back and replacing to their local language, replacing my audio, suddenly now I'm seeing comments written in another language. And I'm like, why are they writing in another? And then I realize, oh, because they live in another country and they watched a version of my video I've not seen, where all of my audio was automatically replaced in their language. So that brings in all these new viewers that we never had before. So everything I've been touting and repeating, they've never heard it until I just said it. And that'll just continue to happen. So I appreciate especially the people that have been with me the longest throughout this journey on YouTube. Just how patient they are listening to me keep repeating myself as though it was never told before. But I think these guys, they understand why. They've never complained about it. But I'm aware of it. And that's why. Right? We want to, somebody's first time here, we want them to feel welcome, and we don't want to talk over their head like it's an inside joke kind of a thing. Because that'll alienate people. It kind of disassociates them with the community, like, oh, you're not in our clique and you don't know our inside jokes. I don't like when people treat me like that, so I'm not going to treat people like that. And if that means I have to keep repeating the basics, that's why I'm doing it. Doing it for people that haven't yet seen this content. Hoping they'll enjoy it and they'll come back for more, and our community will continue to grow. All right, we're just about done with that big preview update there. And then we'll do our first reboot. When we come back up after the reboot, I can go into the BIOS, we'll take a look at it. Born Again Bloodbath says, I've been lurking in the chat for 5 years, I never talk. Well, you should talk. We'd love to talk to you. That's you doing it to yourself. You're more than welcome to join us in our conversation and get to know some people better, and we can get to know you better. And then it'll start to feel wrong when you're not, when you're ignoring everybody. you'll say, gosh, I'm kind of being rude, aren't I? But really, you do it for yourself, because it's nothing like suddenly you become a familiar name. I don't recall ever seeing your name before. So I can't say welcome back. I can't say thank you for being a member for so long or for supporting me for so long, because I've never seen you before now. If you don't speak up as a viewer, I don't know you're there. Besides which, how do we get to know each other? You get to know me, but I'd sure like to get to know you. And that's usually the way friendships start. So that's up to you. No pressure if you're not comfortable. But thank you for speaking up and for being a viewer for the last 5 years. I wish I knew that for the last 5 years, but I've learned something new today, and I appreciate now knowing something that's been there for 5 years I wasn't aware of. Craig Dollar says hello. Welcome into Craig. And JS Columbia says hello. All right. Great. I wanted to look up the, was it the MSS1? Because you said that was mid-range. I want to say that's a high range, but I can't remember which one that. That's a high-end. Oh, you're talking about the Ultra 5 version of the MSS1, right? Is that what it is? No. No, the MSS1, I think they only make one version of it called the Max. The Max means it's top of the line. Nothing's better than that. So I don't know. That's a $3,200 computer. What MSS1? I'm dying to know what he's talking about that he considers mid-range. Let's go to all products and see if there's a non-Max version of the S1. I don't think there is. I think you're confusing your Minisforum models. That is the top level of Minisforum computer you could buy today. If money was no object and you're willing to spend $3,200, that MSS1 Max contains an AMD Ryzen AI Max 395 with up to 128 gigs of RAM, USB 4 V2, and 10 gig Ethernet with Wi-Fi 7. I mean, this thing maxes everything out to the latest of what's available at bleeding edge technology. So I don't think you meant the MSS1. Or there's some other version. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking of the MS02, the Ultra 5 version that's $600. That's very different. Very, very different. But regardless, it's twice the price, right? This is $339 and the MS02 Ultra 5 is it's about $600 bare bones, meaning you still have to put RAM and storage into it, which is another, you know, potentially $300 to $600. So you're over $1,000 on a machine like that. You could buy 3 of these for that price and not have to add anything to them. They're just ready to plug in out of the box. But to each their own, right? If you can have what you can afford. I would love to have a Rolls Royce, but I can't afford one. I never will probably be able to afford one. And I've accepted that I have a full life without having a Rolls Royce. I don't need to have that. But let me get back over to the chat. Craig Dollar said, thank you, Carey, for your streaming. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Calvin says, I even enjoy your stream when you're doing Windows updates. Most boring stream ever, I know, but that's part of the deal. We don't get to edit that out of our lives. These updates are critically important. So important that I interrupt a live show to do it. So I hope I'm conveying that level of urgency to you that you should not be dismissing these updates. These fools online that say you shouldn't install updates or you should wait. Barnum and Bailey circus, man, I'm telling you. Don't fall for it. W. Holmes says, yes, the base model MS02 Ultra. I can't keep track. No, I know what it's like. I do the same thing. Yeah, the MS02. But again, that's bare bones. So you're going to have to put your own RAM and storage and operating system on that. You're easily going to double the cost. Doubling the cost of an MS02 makes this 1/4 the price. And it's plug and play ready. Take it out of the box, plug it in, just like I showed. If you want to spend more, you can have more things done for you. If I stay at a Motel 6 versus if I stay at the Ritz-Carlton, which one's going to cost me more? And which one's going to be a more luxurious experience for me? The Motel 6 or the Ritz-Carlton? And you'd say, well, gosh, I really wish the Motel 6 had all of these amenities and took care of me with the customer service I get at the Ritz-Carlton. Well, if they did that, you'd be paying Ritz-Carlton prices. So likely the reason you're staying at the Motel 6 isn't because the Ritz-Carlton wasn't available, but more than likely because you couldn't afford it or you couldn't justify the cost. So again, I would love to have a Rolls-Royce. I don't ever expect owning one in my life. If an opportunity comes around and I can swing it, I would love to have it. But I don't need it, and I can easily live without it. But it's okay to want things. Nothing wrong with that. Let's see. Yeah, still downloading. So basically, my whole point of this is that what I'm seeing people do over and over and over again is they're spending money. They're spending more money trying to game the system by going on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or AliExpress in trying to put together their own thing, which will almost always, I'd say 80% of the time, result in a higher overall cost once it's all set up and finished, once you've worked through everything. It will take 3 to 4 times longer between the length of shipping, ordering from places like eBay or AliExpress. And furthermore, if you ever get somebody robbing you at a Facebook meetup, and just search for it online, there's stories everywhere. Broad daylight, someone's selling an iPhone, somebody pulls out a gun in the middle of a public area. And they always say the same thing. If you're going to buy from somebody from like OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace, don't invite them in your house. You don't know who they are. And don't go to their house because they could trap you in there. And don't just go to a public place, and don't go at night. Like, holy cow, are you making a drug deal? What's going on? So they say, go to the parking lot of your local police station and meet in that parking lot. And see if they pull a gun or try and pull a knife or threaten you in any way. And if they come up with excuses on why they can't go there, do not buy or sell to that person. They're looking for something that you're not looking for. So if you want to engage to potentially put yourself in harm's way to save $20 or whatever the amount of money is, I don't even care if it's $10,000. Is it worth risking your life? Is it worth all that anxiety? Maybe it is to you. I got other things to do. I'd rather order this from a place like Amazon, have it shipped into my door within 2 days, take it out of the box, plug it in. If there's any problems, I can send it back within 30 days for free for an exchange or a complete refund. The minute you start living your life that way, everything starts getting better. But instead, I see people that want everything. They want it all, but they can't afford any of the one thing. So they get the cheapest version of a big screen TV, and they have problems with it. And they get the cheapest version of this, or, I found this in the trash, so I took it home and it works. That just is a downward spiral to the bottom. You're not making your life better, you're making it worse. There's a reason why somebody threw something in the trash. I understand, one person's trash is another person's treasure, but have some self-respect. I think that, this convincing I'm keeping it out of the landfill. You're not keeping it out of the landfill. You're postponing it from the landfill. Because when you're done with it, it'll go back in the trash. Even if you sold it and made a few dollars, when that person's done with it, they'll put it in it. It's going to go in the trash sooner or later. So you're not saving the environment. That's nonsense. Some people will buy like a pallet of items from Amazon, just returned items. You don't know what you're getting. And you got to sift through it. You got to do all the research. You got to look every item up, see what it's worth, verify that it works, that it's complete, it's not damaged. And then determine what you can resell it for, which will be obviously less than whatever it sells for new. Otherwise, why would anybody buy it? Unless it's out of stock. Do you have any idea how much time and labor that takes? So yes, they'll say, hey, I bought this pallet for $1,500, and by the time we itemized each individual thing, took pictures and wrote descriptions and put them on eBay, and then boxed each thing individually and labeled a shipping address on it and shipped it out. And then some of those things were returned to us. Most of them aren't, right? But we still have to pay eBay fees or PayPal fees. And then you subtract out all of your expenses, subtract out all the hours you spent documenting each thing and looking up each thing. And you say, hey, I made $1,500. I doubled my money. You go, ugh. For 30 days of work, $1,500 isn't much. But if they're happy and that's what they want to do and they feel like that's a good use of their time, you're not doing anything wrong. I think you're worth more than that amount of profit. I think what you put into that was worth way, way more than what you made. But that's just me, right? It's your time. You value it less than I value it. I think your time's worth more than that. But what do I know? So it makes better sense to simply buy from a reputable seller like Amazon, knowing you've got that 30-day return. Make sure, you know, Amazon, not everything Amazon sells has that 30-day return. Some things are being sold by third parties outside of Amazon that have their own return policies. So watch for that. If it says Amazon Prime, then you know you've got that 30 days. Or just read the screen and see what the return policy is. Because if it's not coming from Amazon, if it's coming from a third party, I probably won't order it. Unless it's like a food item and the manufacturer of the food item sells it directly. You can't return food regardless. So there's always exceptions, but you better believe before I place an order on Amazon, I'm making sure if I'm spending a few $100s on something especially, that if I don't like it, I can return it in 30 days. And that return will cost me nothing. There'll be no fees. I won't even have to pay to return it. And I'll get a full refund back, down to the penny, including sales tax. That's the peace of mind I need in my life. And the minute you start abiding by that in everything in your life, all the drama and all the problems you're encountering daily, this broke and that's not working and this needs to be massaged, all that goes away. And suddenly life gets easier and less stressful. You're doing it for yourself. But if you're a hobbyist and you're looking to maybe just buy a project online for something to do, it's not important to you, it's a novelty, it's a hobby, it's a toy, it's something to, it's like playing a video game, it's just something you like to do for entertainment, in which case none of this applies to you, because then you're not going to be emotionally distraught if a project that you thought would be cheap starts becoming expensive, or if a project you thought would take a few hours turns into a few months. That's all part of the fun you bought into, nothing to be upset about. But if what you were trying to do was save money on something you drastically need for an important purpose, I can't agree with that thought process. It just seems like you're setting yourself up for a very stressful and expensive and time-consuming, frustrating experience. And it's your decision, but think it through. You know what I mean? Like, think ahead. What if the worst case scenario is an example here of what happens? Am I going to be okay with it? So if I order this computer from eBay and it's $20 less, but it doesn't arrive at my door for 10 business days, am I okay with that? Like, worst case scenario, this thing takes 2 weeks to get to me. So what? Or, oh my gosh, I'm going to be angry. You got to think ahead before you hit the buy button. Because eBay allows sellers a few days after the sale before they have to ship, and then they might ship via very slow and inexpensive postal service, you know, whatever is the cheapest, versus ordering off Amazon and having it in 2 days, and then free returns. Returns on eBay or AliExpress are damn near non-existent. It's possible, but what a complete time suck that is. And this illusion of saving money is just completely, the illusion becomes real that you voluntarily put yourself in that situation, which is fine if you've already got a plan. But if you thought that it was going to be just like the other, you know, buying from Amazon is the same as buying from eBay, it isn't. Amazon's far more consistent and reliable. eBay, one experience can be great, another experience could be terrible. So anyway, Michael in the chat wants to know, how long should you keep using a Wi-Fi router? Mine is 3 years old. My home is under 1,300 square feet. I don't care how big your house is. Like, that's not even, I appreciate providing additional information, but I don't care how big your house is unless you're running into, how come my Wi-Fi signal is weak in this part of my house? Then I'll ask more about your house. But if your question is, how how long should you use a router? I'd say 5 years. Now, the FCC had said they're not going to allow any updates after 2027 on these foreign-made routers, and recently said, we're idiots. I'm going to paraphrase what the FCC said. We're dummies. We don't really understand technology, and it's come to our attention that by removing updates in 2027 for foreign-made routers will actually make the situation worse that we're trying to fix. We're worried about security. This is how disconnected our government officials are from reality. You know, they're supposed to have advisors that bring them up to speed. One man or one woman can't know all of these industries, but even their advisors don't know. And then they're getting hammered by people who do know, and they just close you out. They have gatekeepers to keep you away from them. And you're like, hey, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. Let me explain to you why. I'm busy. I have 10,000 things I got to do with laws in 700 different industries. I do this every day, every single day. It's more lobbyists, it's more lawmakers, it's meetings, it's politics. I don't have time to talk to my constituent. No. If you know so much, why don't you come here and do it? That is going to be the attitude of our government officials. We have our process, and our process is we talk to our advisors. Okay? So unless you're my advisor, you can write your email to me all day, and we'll make sure one of my advisors or my assistants read it. I, as the person you're writing to, in government, I will never see your email. Not likely. So if it makes you feel better to write a letter, knock yourself out. They'll take it. But it's a formality. They're not actually, the people that you're trying to get to read your letter, they have other people read and respond on their behalf. Sometimes you ask a celebrity for their autograph, and they have an assistant that actually will sign the celebrity's signature for them, and then send you your autographed item. That's, how would you know? So anyway, after the FCC, put their foot down and said, we're not going to allow updates after 2027 on these foreign-made routers, then they said, it's come to our attention that by not allowing updates, the whole thing of security that we're trying to get fixed is going to get worse. We're making it 100 times worse than if we just left it alone and did nothing. So as bad as it is now, that it came up with this reasoning for requiring any new routers to be sold to re-qualify with FCC. They are so disconnected from reality. They are so uneducated about the things they're making laws about that after they make the laws and the reality starts to set in and they start to get a little taste of how bad everything's getting, they realize we screwed up and we just made a bad situation 1,000 times worse than it was if we had done nothing at all. So they come out with a correction. And they never apologize, and they never admit, hey, we don't know what we're doing over here. We're just being advised and we didn't get good advisement. They're not honest. They're not going to throw any of their advisors under the bus. They're not going to throw the lobbyists that get them elected under the bus. So they basically say, well, we've reconsidered our stance and realized that it would be in the best interest of everybody, including the government, that we allow those updates to continue until 2029 on unsupported foreign-made routers. Duh. So anyway, forget all the FCC nonsense, because that's likely administrative. And when we get a new administration every 4 years, when we elect a new president, that new president brings across all their people. And a lot of people lose their jobs simply because you're on the wrong side. You didn't do anything wrong, just the new president comes in, they bring in their own team, they bring in their own friends, they bring in their own benefactors, they give them all positions, and will likely start to undo many of the things the previous administration did. So everything here in America, when people are, getting all worked up, it's like, it's temporary. Once the president gets replaced, this has been going on my whole life. I don't know why people act like it's new. This is what's been going on for years. One does things, the next one comes in, undoes those things, and then and around the wheel goes. So in any event, 5 years is about a good length of time for the life of a router. And the good news for you is that if you're using your router, I'm wondering if we're kind of stuck here. Let me just do a reboot because this hasn't moved. If you are getting your router from your internet service provider and it's been more than 5 years, you should call your internet service provider and tell them, hey, you know, my router's disconnecting randomly, it's acting kind of funky. Could you send somebody out to replace my router? And you just tell them, hey, the problem only happens sometimes, right? So they can test it on the phone and say, I don't see anything. You go, yeah, it's working fine right now, but this problem just started and I have to unplug it and plug it back in. Just lie. You're paying for it. You're renting it from your ISP anyway. So your ISP, as part of your service that you pay for, will come out. And if it's been 5 years or more, chances are they don't even use that router. You don't have to ask for a new one. They're going to give you the best router they've got for the service you're paying for so that they don't have to pay any more for support. It'll cost you nothing but the phone call. But if you don't call, they're probably never going to change it. I had my router changed once when I wanted to upgrade my service from like 300 megabit broadband to gigabit. And they said, well, to do that, you need a newer modem. And these days, you know, the routers and the modems are pretty much built into one for most ISPs in America. You say, okay, well, I really want the gigabit service. They say, well, we need to send somebody out to your house to replace your modem. Okay, schedule it. It's all built into the price. It's not costing anything. So why not do that? On the other hand, if you bought your own router and it's been more than 5 years, you should consider replacing it with a modern router just for yourself, for your own security. And when you break down, how much did that router cost you every day for the last 5 years? Nickels and dimes? I'd say you got your money's worth out of it. But if you don't replace it because you figure, well, it still works, but then your identity gets stolen and it costs you $3,000 in 4 years of time to get your identity back, then you think, you know, buying that router could have avoided all this nonsense and drama and headache, and it would have cost a fraction of the amount of money if I'd have just been ahead of it. Rather than being reactive, I could have been proactive and put steps in place. And I would say after 5 years of ownership of a router, you should be planning to replace that router soon. Tires on a car. Maybe you got plenty of tread on the tire, but the tire's 8 years old. The rubber of the tire starts to dry rot and it'll start breaking apart on the sidewalls. Even though you've got lots of tread, those tires aren't good anymore. Do you want to wait until you're stranded off to the side of the road? And when your tire blows, when the tire's spinning and that rubber, then the metal in the tire starts hitting the edges of the car, do you have any idea how much damage is caused to the body of the car in dents and scratches to the paint? And then you're abandoned on the side of the road, either having to change the tire yourself and having to buy a tire when you weren't ready to buy a tire. So those tires reach 8 years old, you should plan on getting them replaced soon. Otherwise, you'll be replacing them when they blow, which means you're not shopping for the best price, you're stuck on the side of the road, you're inconvenienced. It'll cost you more and take you longer if you want to be reactive. If you're proactive and you get ahead of it, less stress and it'll cost you less. So that's my theory that I use for everything, including routers. The router at Studio A, I just got an email from Netgear saying they're not going to update it anymore. It works fine. I'll probably let it run another year, or maybe I won't. We'll see. I've got other routers I could put over there. I've got some TP links that we were using like at Studio B that aren't being used anymore. I could put them at Studio A. Right now, they just announced it. They literally, Netgear said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to update this router. It's still going to work. It's just not going to get any more updates. Well, that doesn't mean I have to do anything today. It just means that if the updates used to come out once or twice a year, let's say, now they're never coming out again. When would I expect, if Netgear didn't send that announcement, when would I expect the router to be upgraded with a firmware update? Probably about 6 months or a year. Okay, well, that ain't coming. Not anymore. All right, well, within 6 months or a year, it wouldn't have changed anything until that update would have come out. So I don't need to act on it today. It won't hurt me to act on it today. It won't be any harm other than financial or the inconvenience. But the idea is that they're telling me now that in the future, there won't be any more updates. So if the updates were coming out once or twice a year, then you have a good gauge of how long the updates would span between updates. And so you're still between updates with that announcement. They're saying, okay, this last update will be the last one. So if you were expecting another update in 12 months, it ain't coming. So once those 12 months pass, you're like, okay, now I should be worried because now I'm not a date. That would be waiting to the last minute, which you can do. That's fine. You'll probably be okay. But if you just ignore it until there's a problem, you're on your own, my friend. Good luck with that. Find Me in Hawaii is now a member 43 months. Hey, thank you, Ken. All right, let's get in the BIOS on this and see what it looks like. So let me go full screen over here. And what I'll do is I'll just go to Settings and Windows Update, but instead of updating, I'm going to give up on that since it's taking so long. We'll go to Advanced, Recovery, and under Advanced Startup, we'll restart. And then that's going to give us our startup menu. Instead of booting right into Windows, it'll say, what do you want to do? And we'll tell it we want to go into the BIOS. And then we don't have to worry about which key to press when and the right timing and all the other nonsense. This is so much easier. Oh, look, and it's still doing updates anyway. Okay, let me get back over to the chat. Oh, Andy mentions that the FCC commissioners, they're not voted in. They're appointed by the president. That's why all these rules with the FCC are related to who our president is. When the next president steps in, likely that person will change. Likely. Even if it's in the same party. They all have their own friends. And it's sort of a, if you contribute a lot of money to the campaign that helps get the person elected, then they can make you an ambassador for the United States at another country. It's really, it's a gift position that doesn't really do a whole lot in most cases. Sometimes those ambassadors are put into hostage situations, like in Iran back in the 70s, that they're not equipped to handle. They're usually just positions of power. It's like giving you a gold robe. There's your gold robe. People didn't vote to put them into those positions. It was a benefit of being a friend and a supporter of the person in power. No different than in business. If you know the owner of the company and you're good friends, you're probably going to be higher up in the company or be offered more pay or more promotion because there's a friendship and there's like an appreciation that you're not just some random person working there, but rather you're somebody that has a relationship that is appreciated by the owner, and so the owner is going to take care of you differently than they take care of everybody else. This is how people with money operate, right? Why would they pay money for somebody to oppose them? So when somebody is working against you and you've hired them and you're paying them, of course you're going to fire them. Why would you pay them, to try and form a union and undermine your corporation? When they came to you asking for a job and you gave them one, this is how they thank you? Fire them. It's not their company. They can go start their own company and they can go start their own union. That's why you'll see this attitude, like from people at Starbucks and other manufacturers and Amazon, that push back so hard that that's the thanks we're giving you, that you're giving us rather, in exchange for giving you a job that you asked us for. And we could have picked other people for that job, but we picked you, and you're now going to say that it's not fair, and you want to form a union, and you want to fight against the company. There's a real interesting story with Henry Ford and how he paid his workers more, on average, than any other employer in the United States, and even set the 8-hour workday. Before that, you could work 12 hours a day. There were no rules. Henry Ford was like, okay, how do I operate my factory for 24 hours? And he divided it by 8 and said, okay, we'll have 3 shifts of 8 hours. He just made this up. It just made sense to him. And then he paid people better, just being hired, than anybody else in the United States. And then they decided they wanted more money and they wanted to form a union, and he about hit the wall. I did all of this for you people. I gave you a day of 8 hours instead of 10 or 12. I formalized it. I pay you better than anybody else pays you. And now you're going to thank me by picketing and striking? If you watch the documentary on Henry Ford, you will feel the anger of betrayal of basically the people you're helping, the people you're feeding, biting the hand that's feeding them. He was outraged, insulted, and betrayed by the very people he gave opportunities to. And if you put yourself in his position, I think it's easy to understand why somebody would feel that way. You'd say, wow, that's incredibly offensive and greedy, and for the employees to work like, why don't the employees just quit if it's so unfair? And you have the opposite stories too, where there were these moguls of industry that were working their employees to literal death and then not giving the families anything. And that's when unions had to be formed and laws had to be created, like OSHA for safety and health, that people that were in construction working with asbestos or lead paint or the forever chemicals would be taken care of, because they basically gave up their life or their quality of life so that somebody could make more money. And they just want to be compensated for that, because what's done is done. They can't undo it. And they say, no, we're not going to give you a penny. Then you go, well, then in this case, unions are fair and just. So there's certain situations where these unions are the only thing making anything fair, and other situations where the unions are working against the company and cause the company to have to file bankruptcy. I mean, look what's going on with the United States Post Office. They're just about bankrupt. It's just not going to work. And the car industry, because of the unions, they're paying pensions for years after the employees have retired. Wealthy, expensive pensions. I think Mitch, our friend Mitch Morrison, I think his father worked in the auto industry for 30 years and collected a pension for 40 years after he was done, or damn near 40 years. In other words, he collected a pension longer than he was working. Well, if you go through enough employees over enough period of time, you'll have so much going out in pensions, there won't be any money left to run the company. So in that case, the union took it too far. They needed to dial that back in. So the way the company gets out of that is they file for a bankruptcy and dissolve all of that debt. And all those people relying on those pensions, that's all dried up. You got to rely on something like 401k and just hope the stock market doesn't crash, or provide your own nest egg. But what I'm trying to get across is I'm not saying the unions are bad. Sometimes they're needed, and sometimes they're in the way. And that's the delicate balance of the industries that we're talking about with regards to fairness. Look at what's going on with Samsung right now. Samsung has made record profits, the likes of which Samsung has never seen before. And the employees are threatening to go on strike if Samsung doesn't share 10% of those profits with the employees. What they're asking for, just to give you an idea of numbers, each employee would receive, so you take 10% of your operating profits and divide that 10% by the number of employees that you have that are a key to getting your product out that you can sell in order to make profits. I think it's a fair ask. You as a company are doing well, so we as the employees should do well. You've made record profits, but you're not paying us any extra. We're going to go on strike. I don't know if you know how much money we're talking about here, but SK Hynix also saw record profits. And they're planning on doling, I think, 10% of their net profits out to their employees. That's going to cut a check for each employee, just a bonus. This is on top of your salary. Are you sitting down? This is just 10% of the profits divided by all your employees. So everybody gets a piece of that 10%. Almost $500,000 a piece. Nearly $500,000 to each employee as a bonus. That's how much profit SK Hynix and Samsung are making right now. So imagine if they go on strike and all the employees say we're not working, then they can't continue to earn any more money without the production lines running. In such a case, I think the employees are right here. They're not asking for much, just 10%. You wouldn't have had it without us. It's not Samsung's fault that this industry, you know, the changes in RAM that happened, Samsung's not responsible. However, they happened to be at the right place at the right time and got this windfall of record-breaking profits. And to not share that with your employees who made that possible, it's just morally bankrupt to do that. So we'll see how this works out, but I don't know that Samsung's made a decision, but the clock is ticking and the employees are going to go on strike and not work. And then good luck to making any more profits while we're not working. So anyway, pros and cons. And everybody's got their opinion, right? As far as, well, that's not fair. They're, you know, they got paid their salary. Yeah. And Samsung made record profits, the likes of which they've never seen before, just because of being in the right place at the right time. It wasn't like they worked any harder. It wasn't like they created the demand. It just so happens that what's in demand they make. So the value of it went up. Therefore, hiring those employees at whatever rate was reasonable at the time you hired them is no longer a reasonable rate given your industry. So if being a heart surgeon paid the same as sweeping the floors, why would anybody be a heart surgeon? And if you're an assistant to the janitor versus an assistant to the surgeon at the hospital, which one of those jobs do you think is going to pay more? Well, it's based on how much the job is paying, not based on the surgeon keeping more money for himself. But that's often the way industry works here in the States. They want to keep as much of it as possible, and they treat the employees no differently than customers, just another avenue to make money off of. I first experienced this when I worked at Intel. When I had worked at other companies, they would give away things, coffee mugs and things. Intel didn't do that. Intel had a company catalog. This blew my mind. A catalog that no customer will ever see. It's only for employees. And you can buy Intel keychains, and you could buy Intel earrings, and you could buy an Intel branded watch. And you could establish points like a cigarette smoker. Every time you buy a pack of cigarettes, you get points. You could trade those points in on something from our Marlboro catalog of, well, that's what Intel was doing with their employees. You'd establish points like in a review and things of that. And then you could then spend those points by buying something in the catalog, or you could just pay cash. You want a big tumbler, you know, a drink tumbler with the Intel logo. They sold that to their employees. It wasn't given. Maybe under certain circumstances, they make an exception and give somebody a mug. But in general, you built up points, and then you'd spend the points on items in the catalog, just like the old cigarettes. And I never experienced that at a company before. I thought, holy cow, I thought I worked for the company. I didn't realize I was just another customer to Intel. Whether or not I worked for them, I'm just another source of income. That blew my mind. All right, let's hit troubleshoot, advanced, and then UEFI firmware settings. There we go. And that'll restart us into the BIOS finally. I don't recall being able to trade the points for cash. It was just you order something from the catalog, or you just don't use your points. You can just let them build and build and build until you lose your job, and then they don't transfer. They don't write you a check at the end of your employment if they decide to let you go or you decide to quit. Those points, if you don't use them, you lose them. That's it. So why not just order something out of the catalog? It's so bizarre. It still strikes me as weird. I'm not a customer. I work for you. I thought I was family. I thought we'd take care of each other. Oh, no. Read your catalog. Shut up. I've never seen this catalog before. No, because you've never been an employee before. Yeah, but people didn't even talk about it. Yeah. All right. Let me get rid of camera one and we'll take a look at this BIOS. Let's see. Advanced AirDisk 512. All right, I think that's a SATA drive and not a NVMe drive. Mainly because it's under SATA, right? It wouldn't be SATA, it would be NVMe. NVMe configuration, no device found. So there you go. One of the ways you can get the price cheaper on these is to put slower storage in. So be prepared if you're not okay with that. It looks like there's only one socket. No, there's two. It says DIMM 1 is a 16 gig module and DIMM 0 is empty. If there was no DIMM 0, it should not have. If it doesn't exist, if the slot doesn't exist, it wouldn't say the slot doesn't exist. It would say the slot exists, but it's empty. That's what not present means. Not that the socket isn't present, but the socket is there, but it's empty. Just so we're understanding the technology, the wording here. That's why it doesn't say DIMM 3 and DIMM 4, because they don't exist. It doesn't say not present. Duh. If it's not there, it's pretty obvious it's not present. So I expect to see two sockets in here when we open it because of that phrasing. But I don't see anything regarding performance here, like any performance options or fan options. It looks like everything is set by default at the factory and it is not user changeable. And that's pretty typical at this level of computer, which I feel is higher than budget, but right at where this computer sits in my logic is it sits at the high end of budget or the low end of mid-range. So I think of it more at this point, entry-level mid-range than high-end budget. And as a result, it's very limited, okay? And so is the price. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll save the changes even though we didn't make any, and we'll reboot it and bring back camera one, and then let's open it up and take a look at the inside. Mats Olaf says hello. Welcome in, Mats Olaf. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, Bikeman mentions his mother still gets a pension from his dad's job. His dad worked for a company for 17 years, left that company, and passed away, and that small pension still comes into his wife, to his father, his mother, his father's wife. Yeah, these pensions, you're basically paying somebody to not work. And that's generally a result of unions. However, you know, you could have a 401k and have your own pension that the company doesn't control. And he mentions Henry Ford had a paternalistic attitude. I do think that's right. He was like a fatherly person that was very strict and very much in charge. Which isn't to say he was particularly smart or always made good decisions. You would not want to be Edsel Ford and have your father berate you and constantly remind you of how inferior you are and you'll never amount to anything. And then when you finally get to make your car is a sales flop and your father just says, I told you so. But then Henry Ford also said a lot of stupid things that turned out that he was holding himself back and the company could have been a lot bigger if he wasn't in his own way. But his company, it's his right to do that. Luke Greenia says, I'm going to cry when ASUS stops updates for the BT10. That's a brand new router, Luke. I don't think updates for that. Let's just ask Google here. How long is the ASUS BT10 support for updates? According to ASUS, it says these products will reach end of support on this date, and you're looking for the BT10. It says support ends the 30th of December 2027, so you got about a year and a half. And you never know if they extend the update, which can often happen. The nearer the update gets, they might change their mind and extend it. But this is what's currently planned. And that pretty much follows the same dates and time periods of every other router manufacturer. They all kind of follow the same support lifespan. There might be some exceptions, but that's the general length of time. Because remember, the longer they support it, the more it costs them. You're paying nothing in addition. So the longer they support it, the more money they lose. They'd rather you go out and buy a new unit and start over again, and they can start over with that little profit they made. And if you don't upgrade, then if everybody does that, they just won't have the money or means to continue the support even if they wanted to. All right, with that, get back over here. And let's go ahead and shut this computer down. Can't see. That's a pretty fast shutdown. Let's go back full screen on camera 1. And let's get everything unplugged, including the keyboard and mouse. All right. Let's see what she's made of. I'm going to guess underneath these rubber feet are going to be our screws. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't think this lid just comes off. I know we had that Camrui unit where you just pop the lid off. That was so cool. And other Camrui units, they have a switch back here, and you move the switch and then the lid comes off. But I think in this case, I think we're going to have to come in from the bottom. I don't think this comes up at all. I think that's secured down. Same manufacturer, but a different type of a case. Those rubber feet are on there good too. Oh yeah, we've got a screw. Very thin rubber foot there. That makes it very difficult to pull up on. There's not much to grab. Maybe a small tool. Maybe something like this little screwdriver. And let me get my good glasses out so I can see better. See, the thing is, I don't want to tear the foot. And using a tool that's unforgiving like this versus, say, your fingernail, you know, your finger has a lot more flex. There we go. Nice and clean removal on that one. But there's just not much to grab onto on these. They barely stick out, maybe 2 millimeters from the bottom. So they're not giving you much pathway for air to get in here. I'd like to see thicker feet. On the other hand, it's sort of a low wattage CPU anyway, so it shouldn't get that hot. But there's definitely heat coming off the bottom of this. But be careful when you rip these feet off, because you might just end up with half a foot if you're not careful and paying attention. And there's no spare feet in the box either. If you're going to require me to remove feet to open this, these feet are going to become delicate and brittle as they dry out over time. The only reason they're coming off clean right now is because they're brand new. On the other hand, this unit is not meant to be constantly opened and serviced. It's a discount budgeted unit for, you know, the high-end budget or low-end mid-range, and it is built for that purpose, and people that want to keep opening them and modifying them should probably buy a machine designed for that. And you'll spend more for it. All the screws, except for that first one, that was kind of in their normal. These feel like they've been super loose. Yeah, I mean, they were just barely tightened like that. It doesn't take anything to loosen them, which is fine. They don't have to be that tight, but I wouldn't, when I put this back together, I won't put it together that loose. Now, I want to pay particular attention to the orientation of the plate before I remove it, because I always screw myself up when I go to put it back together, and I can't remember, was this sticker towards the front or was that sticker towards the front? So all the writing is facing me right now, and that's facing the front. Another way I could think of it is the VESA mounting points, those brass screw points, screw mounts. Those are also towards the front, and the front is facing me, power button. So if I remember that before I take this off, then there's no way for me to lift this. There's no pull tab or anything. But if you look very closely, there's a little tiny gap, right? My finger's over it right now, between the edge and that seam, that is designed for you to take like a spudger or a tool, like a guitar pick or something, and put it in that little slot and then lift up on it. And there could be wires attached to this, so we don't know that yet. And even though we've removed the screws, you can see it was resistant because there are still plastic tabs. Like you can see right there, there's a little notch. And then there's a piece of plastic sticking out. And if you just pull that straight up, you're probably going to break that plastic. As the unit ages, that plastic will become more brittle. You don't have that problem with metal computers, but metal computers have, you know, fingerprints that show up oftentimes, and then Wi-Fi and Bluetooth range issues because that metal acts as a shield. It's constantly a give and a take, and it's for each one of us to decide for ourselves which sacrifice we're willing to make for which benefits. What might be worth it to you may not be worth it to somebody else. So be aware of that when you're making your purchasing choice. Now inside, there's our NVMe drive. There's our RAM, and there's our spare RAM socket. Let me bring this up to the camera and I'll show you close up. Now check this out. This unit has a second M.2 slot right here. What speed is it? I don't know. We'll have to put something in there and find out. That is most assuredly going to be a SATA. It's a, you know, I've never seen this brand air disk where I've ever been impressed. This is as cheap as you can go while still being reliable, in my opinion and in my experience. Remember I said there'd be a second DIMM socket? There it is. And that it was empty. See that? That's our RAM. If you want to read it, I'll turn it around. Underneath the SATA drive here, this M.2 SATA, underneath you'll see the Wi-Fi card. And right over here where this, where is it? Everything's backwards for me. Underneath this tape, I think that is your CMOS battery right there. See the black and red wire coming out? So that's all kind of underneath this M.2 drive. Now, with regards to what speed is this, I've yet to find a utility that's very useful in describing what the slots of the motherboard support. There are some utilities that if you dig down and you know how to translate what it's saying, but I don't want to go through that much work. Instead, I'll just go grab an NVMe drive. I've got plenty of them here. And we'll plug it in. We'll grab a Gen 4. So I'll grab one of my Beijing drives right here. And then what I'm going to do is plug it into the spare slot. And we'll run Crystal Disk Info. Because if this runs at Gen 3x3, this is backwards compatible. This would be like if I had a USB 3 flash drive and I plug it into a USB 2 port, it'll run at USB 2 speeds. If this is a Gen 4 drive and I plug it into a Gen 3 slot, it'll run at Gen 3 speeds. Common sense? So let me grab a small screwdriver so I can get that teeny tiny little, I'll use a little throwaway screwdriver. Perfect fit. Let's go close up on the camera too. There we go. We'll put this bad boy in there. Everything's serviceable on this side. There's no reason for you to get into this side. If you need to dust it, just blow the air duster around the seam and the dust will come out. There's no reason that I can think of that you would need to pull this whole board out. You can if you want to. If you buy one, you can throw it in the pool if you want to. I wouldn't expect it to work afterwards, but if that's what you want to do to it, I can't recommend it, but I can't stop you. Let's just plug this back in. I'm going to leave the cover off of it for right now. And then let's take a look at the how that drive is detected we plugged in. So I'll plug power. And I need my USB keyboard and mouse. And I need an Ethernet cable. And then I need to plug HDMI back into the capture card. Oh, this is interesting. Apparently this is one of those designs where these 4 screws are holding the motherboard in, because now the motherboard is drooping and the USB ports aren't lining up with the holes in the case because it's leaning. So I guess if you really needed to take that board out to get to the other side, you're halfway there. But good to know. Saves on some screws, I suppose. Let's go ahead and turn this back on, and we'll go back over to the capture and put myself in a corner again. And then I'm going to need my USB utilities flash drive so we can copy crystal disk info off of it and take a look at the current drive that's installed along with the one that we added, just to verify that that's a SATA drive and the other slot is NVMe. And then we can reverse positions and make sure that both slots are the same. Sometimes one slot could be 1 speed or SATA only or NVMe only. And if it's not well documented on the site, then, well, that's why I make these videos, so that you can figure that out before you make the purchase. So we'll just plug this in back here. Just use one of those USB ports there. And let me get rid of camera 1 now, because I need to see that. There we go. Maybe that was hiding. Let me go full screen over here. I can see it the way you're seeing it. And we'll go to the yellow folder. We're going to go to my flash drive here. We're going to copy over crystal disk mark, crystal disk info. And we could also copy over Cinebench and other things, but I think we're going to run out of time before we get there. I still want to do a wipe and reinstall and figure out what drivers we're going to need. But again, I think that's going to have to wait for part 2, because that's probably a 90-minute process. But we can at least verify what's going on with these M.2 slots today. So let's pull up disk info from Crystal Disk Info. Free portable utility we don't have to install. Give that a second to initialize. It says the AirDisk 512 is a SATA 600 or SATA 3 that's running at SATA 3 speeds. So it's running as fast as it can. The drive we installed, that's our USB flash drive. So we'll go to the next one. That's the phasing. It says notice here, the current mode is PCIe 3x4, but the drive support, you see how it says supported mode? The drive is capable of PCIe 4x4. So the drive is backwards compatible, running at the slower generation. That tells us that that particular socket we plugged into is Gen 3x4. And that if we put a Gen 4 drive in it, it'll work, but we're probably spending more money on a faster drive than if we just bought a Gen 3 drive to begin with. On the other hand, with SSD prices being what they are, it may be no difference in price at all. In which case you want to future-proof and put a Gen 4x4 in there, and it's not costing you anymore. It's not going to run any faster than Gen 3 until you move it. So if your plan is one day I'll move it, then you're future-proofing yourself, assuming that it has enough space on it that by the time you move it, it's not so small that you would just say, well, gosh, I don't want this drive even though it's fast. It's not at today's levels of capacity. And that's the risk you take when you try and future-proof something that evolves as quickly as this technology with computers. So now we know. What if we reversed it? So let's turn this around, shut her down, and let's trade places with the SATA drive and the NVMe drive. Let me come back to camera 1 again. In fact, let's just go to camera 2. Let's do that. Make sure this is off. Make sure that you unplug everything. It's just in your best interest to just take it all out, especially power. People are too big of a hurry and they can't be bothered to unplug the power. And I'm pretty sure we did that on a live video where I killed a B-Link unit when trying to change the RAM and I didn't unplug power. And B-Link never replaced that for us. We ended up sending it off to another content creator who also couldn't fix it, but he wanted to have the fun to, get the soldering iron and the scope out and do a level of work we would never do, because quite frankly, that work is worth 10 times what that computer cost. And even that was a complete waste of time because he couldn't fix it. But let me grab my little screwdriver again. And what I want to do is I want to take the phasing drive and move it here, and take this one and move it there, and see that this supports SATA and that this supports also Gen 3. Because this could be Gen 4 or maybe not even. Maybe it's SATA only. We don't know. It's not labeled. So this is how we find out the Carey way. You could sit there and do all the theoretical research, or you can actually just take 5 minutes and do the work. And the theoretical research comes up with theoretical answers, and it takes 100 times longer, and it still has yet to be proven. Or you can just do the work, which takes much less time, and see definitive results that are unquestionably factual and not under any interpretation. So the first thing I'm noticing is these drives, once again, you can see the Wi-Fi card is replaceable, and the yellow there, that's the CMOS battery. It was hidden underneath. So let's seat these back in. Now, in a perfect world, these will both be the same. They will both support SATA, they will both support NVMe, and they will both be Gen 3x4. That's what I'm expecting to see, and now I just want to verify it. And that's just based on my experience. It's not based on anything other than what would you get for this price in today's market. That's what I would expect for this price. At a cheaper price, I would expect less. Just going to secure those back down. Now this isn't formatted, this phasing drive. It's just a blank drive with no partition or format. So the system will automatically boot to whichever of these is bootable. Doesn't matter if we move it in that circumstance. Okay, HDMI cable, Ethernet cable, and I left the keyboard plugged in. Turn it back on. And let's go back over to the screen here, this output. There I am. Now, interestingly, it didn't boot. Okay, so the reason it went into the BIOS is likely because the other M.2, even though the SATA M.2 slid into the slot appears to be NVMe only. So what'll happen is if we go into the BIOS and we look under the NVMe status, where is it? NVMe configuration, it only sees the phasing drive, and I'm sure it's going to see it as a Gen 3x4. I'm pretty sure this computer is not going to have a Gen 4 slot. So the good news is, the important thing is that both slots see NVMe, but only one of the slots will see SATA as well. The other slot will not recognize it. It does not exist. So if we look under SATA, remember before it was listed under SATA, I bet you it's empty in there. That's why. But is this first slot going to be Gen 3, or is it possible it's Gen 4 and it's also SATA? That would be really dumb to take your fastest port and combine it with the slowest compatibility, and then take your slower port and not have it be backwards compatible to the slowest. That wouldn't make sense to me. It's possible because sometimes manufacturers do things that don't make any sense to me, although there are typically engineering or cost reasons for it. The only way I would know would be to reinstall. We'd have to boot this to Windows and then run Crystal Disk Mark on it. So I could clone. Let me come back over here for a second. I could clone this air disk using Acronis over to the Feijing and then boot from it. And that's about the only way I'm going to know for sure with confidence that that is also going to be Gen 3x4 and not Gen 4. Let's do it. So let me grab my Acronis. I'll just grab my regular Acronis flash drive here. It's a rescue disk. Now, as long as I leave this air disk SATA in the wrong port, it will not communicate. It's dead in the water with as far as like being able to use it. So I have to move them back where they were in order for the system to recognize it, then clone it, then move them around again. When you're buying these less expensive computers, you're not going to get all the bells, whistles, and features of somebody else who spent more, who can use either slot for either thing, or likely would have never had a SATA drive to begin with. You understand that, right? This is how we're getting to this price. And most people won't notice any difference regardless. But most people don't watch this channel. And you, my audience, you're not most people. So yeah, this might be something that upsets you. But if you're in that ballpark range of money, you have to know what to expect. And it's all well and good when your expectations are blown out of the water. It's like, wow, I can't believe I got that much. But usually you're getting exactly what you're paying for. So I personally don't take issue with this. What more would you expect? The fact of the matter is you could buy your own machine bare bones and put a drive in there that costs as much as the whole computer. Most people won't do that though. Let me go to full screen here on, well, first, I guess, let's pull the power. Right, we don't need to properly shut it down because we're not booting into anything. So no danger with that. And I'll leave HDMI and Ethernet plugged in for right now. As long as we've got the power removed, we can safely move these around. And let's move over to camera 2. And all I need to do is put the NVMe drive back where I had it originally, and put the SATA drive back where it was originally, then reboot to the Acronis Rescue, clone from the SATA to the NVMe, take the SATA out entirely, just put this, move this one back to this position and fire it up. That's a lot of work because the manufacturer is not voluntarily submitting this information. So it's not hard work. It's not like I'm breaking a sweat. It's just, seems like there should be a system utility that would easily tell us without having to go through all this. But on the other hand, when I know firsthand from personal experience, I don't have to trust a system utility to be accurate. So this is still the best possible way to know the truth, is to have hands-on experience versus reading about somebody else's experience who may not know what the hell they're talking about. Because, you know, that's not a requirement on the internet. Can you imagine if it was? How much better the internet would be and all the scammers would suddenly be gone? But that's not the world we live in. Let me grab my flash drive now. You see how long this took? Oh, listen to me whine about it. I whined about it longer than it took me to do it, as usual. So just shut up and do the work. All right, let's turn that back on. And now let's see if we can boot to Let's come back over here, press delete, delete, delete. Did I miss it? Oh, I got in just in time. And let's boot to the UEFI, the USB flash drive. Click on that, and that should start a Linux-based Acronis. I also have the Windows recovery environment version as well. So if this, for whatever reason, doesn't work well for us, I have 2 different rescue disks from Acronis. And that's made using the Acronis software when you buy it. It says, do you want to make a Linux version or do you want to make a Windows version? So I'm just going to try the Linux version because we'll go to Tools and Clone. Automatic cloning is what we want. Hit Next. Disk 1 is our source. Disk 3, right, because that's USB. We won't be doing anything with that. That's the Acronis rescue disk. See how small it is? 1.85 gig. So this will be our source. The reason disk 2 does not show up as a source is it's empty. In the automatic mode, it says there's no way you want to clone an empty drive, so it doesn't even offer it to you. Thank you, Acronis, for common sense. A lot of the free cloning utilities, they'll let you clone an empty drive and erase your data drive, and then you're screwed unless you have a backup. So this also helps to avoid mistakes. Hit Next. Now it's going to look for a potential destination, which then should pull up the Beijing drive, which again has no partition or format. It's not initialized. That's it right there. Once again, disk 3 remains our flash drive, which we're not going to use in either case because that's our Acronis software. Next, we're using this to replace a disk on this machine. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing. Next. Okay, the drive is completely empty, but when it's done, it's going to have these partitions with this much data represented in green, and the rest of this is free space. Proceed. Yeah, love me some Acronis, man. I don't use it very often these days, but when I do need it, boy, you can count on it. I can lean on it, and it's there to support me. And unfortunately, you know, the times have changed. We're doing this, you know, getting service calls for drive replacements. That's all kind of dried up. 97% of that work is done. Like, it's no longer necessary now. So my dependence on Acronis as a tool is fading, unfortunately. No fault of Acronis. It's just the technology is moving so far advanced that the likelihood and frequency that I need a tool like this is becoming less and less frequent. But when I do need it, I'll tell you what, it gets the job done, and it does it right the first time, and it makes it quick and easy. If I had one of those hardware cloning tools, you know, like a dock that takes 2 drives, you'd have to have one that accepted SATA drives and also accepted NVMe drives, and those cost more. They're usually one or the other. So if you want one that can do both, you're going to spend more. And the way those work is they copy every sector. It doesn't matter if the sector's empty. So if you're going to copy a 512 gig drive to another drive, then the drive you're copying to has to have the same number of sectors or greater. So what ends up happening in this circumstance is it would take a lot longer than 6 minutes, because it would copy 90% of this drive is empty, and it would copy all that emptiness for no apparent reason other than it's just a dumb cloner. That's what those hardware's cloners are. They're just dumb. Doesn't matter what's on them. Linux, Mac, they don't care. They just take whatever ones and zeros are on it and blindly copy it over, which is great if you're trying to do data recovery on a failed drive and you need to preserve all of the data that may be hidden. But for a regular home user, it's profoundly time consuming. And when it's done, you know, your target drive has to be the same size or larger. Ours is 4 times larger. This Beijing drive is 2 terabytes, and the original source is 500 gigs, 1/4. And when we reboot on a cloned hardware cloner, it makes our 2 terabyte drive 512 gigs. It doesn't know any better. And then you have to go in and repartition it yourself. Acronis takes care of all this. It says, hey, we're not copying the empty space. It's already done. Look how fast that was. And it automatically resized the partition. So when we reboot, we're going to have our same desktop, our same icons. Everything's the same, all the same temp files, but our free space will be 3 times larger automatically. So if you wonder why I'm so enthusiastic about Acronis, think of the amount of work that saves me. All right, with that, let me bring back camera 1 here, and I'm gonna pull power because the clone is done. I'm gonna take out my Acronis flash drive because that's done, and we'll put that away. We shouldn't need that anymore. I'll grab my little screwdriver. We're gonna take, let's go back to camera 2. We're gonna take out and leave out the SATA drive, since this is the only slot it will work in, right? Take that out. We'll save that, set it aside. And then we'll verify that the phasing drive boots off of the first socket. And then once it boots, we can verify that it's Gen 3 by 4 as well, or if it's something different. This is the only way I know how to tell this without debate. And as long as manufacturers continue to not disclose this information, then I have a purpose. I will disclose it. It shouldn't be anything we're hiding. We should know exactly what we're buying. All right, so with that, we'll plug it back in, turn it back on, and let's get back over to this desktop. It should start booting. I'm not going into the BIOS. I'm not making any changes. Acronis is seamless like that. And it should come up exactly the same way it used to come up with this drive. All the same icons. Everything should be the same. Choose an option. We'll just continue. I don't know why that came up again. Continue. It was still in the safe startup mode for some reason. It does worry me. It says, please wait. It does indicate something's not working. Oh, okay. No, it just keeps coming up with this. Let's see. Use a device. Windows Boot Manager. I'm surprised I'm going through this. Normally it's a seamless process, but this is why we film live. It's not the end of the world. It's just an unexpected result that we've got to resolve, which is not normal. So whether or not it has something to do with the slot, or maybe it's a setting in the BIOS, I'll find out here in just a second. Looks like we're stuck in a loop. Interesting. Wonder what happens if I go to troubleshoot, just out of curiosity. I've never had troubleshoot help me. Advanced options, startup repair. One of the other issues you could run into when you put a faster NVMe in here is you don't have any cooling on this side of the computer. So while you think you're making your system better, you could actually make it unreliable. You could have a drive that overheats and starts to throttle itself to a fraction of its normal speed because it's getting too hot. Once again, you should consider buying a higher end computer if that's what if you're that demanding of a user. Couldn't repair the computer, advanced options. Troubleshoot, advanced, go into the BIOS. See, all I'm trying to figure out throughout this entire exercise is what that slot supports. The fact that it's booting and recognizing we know it's NVMe compatible, we just don't know what generation it is. And maybe I can cheat a little bit and just look here. No, that doesn't tell us what speed we're connected at, but it does see the drive. So that first slot will see NVMe or SATA, the second slot will only see NVMe. They're both probably Gen 3 by 4. And that's just the last piece of the puzzle I'm trying to get figured out and sorted here. What does our boot up say? Boot mode UEFI. Is secure boot up? I don't think it's on. I don't know that that'll make a difference. Secure boot. Let's make sure that's off. That could be the problem right there. Probably should have turned that off before I did the clone. I assumed it was off. I didn't bother checking, and this is what happens when we assume. I'll get there eventually, but I could have got there a lot faster if I would have just done things correctly. And I know better, and I did it anyway. Notice it doesn't say please wait anymore underneath the spinning toilet bowl. I think we're going to get to the desktop this time. What do you know? If I just practice what I preach, things would go a lot smoother. That's why I recommend you practice what I preach. And when I don't practice what I preach, you see why. In case you're wondering, what's my motivation? To avoid what we just went through. I already knew the answers. I already knew what to do, and yet I didn't do it because I thought I was saving time. Prime example of what the end users do constantly. All right, let's go back to still disk info, finally. And you'll see Acronis did a great job. Everything looks exactly the same. And let's just verify we're in Gen 3 by 4. Oh, we aren't. Oh, that's Gen 3 by 2. So you know what that means, don't you? The drive supports Gen 4 by 4, which in this case translates out to over 7,100 megabytes per second sequential read speeds. But Gen 3 by 4 would only maximum 3,600 read speeds. But Gen 3 by 2 is half of that, which would be 1,800. So I'll bet you if we run Crystal Disk Mark, we're not going to see more than 1,800, or basically 1/4 the speed of this drive. Which would mean if you bought this drive and put it in that slot, you'd have wasted your money, because you could have bought a less expensive drive. Let's see if I'm right. 1,800? Oh, it's worse. This is important information, I think, that the manufacturer should be relaying on the site to say that first M.2 slot is Gen 3 by 2, and the second M.2 slot is Gen 3 by 4. That the drive, that the computer ships with a SATA drive in the first M.2, because that also supports SATA. There you have it. Now, to give that some comparison, 1,200 and 1,300, right? Let's hit stop on this, and let's shut it down. And unplug power once the power light goes out. And all I want to do is move this back over here. That's why there needs to be labels. If it's not all the same, and you know, I could have assumed, oh, it's probably Gen 3 by 4. If that's too much trouble to figure out why it's not booting. And I would walk away with false information without verification. And that would not stop me from going on Reddit and saying, hey guys, that slot is also Gen 3. No, it isn't. Well, I tried it and it saw the NV. Yeah, it saw it. You didn't see it at the same speed as the other slot, and you didn't verify it, so you're promoting false information online, thinking, look at me helping everybody, and all you did was poison everybody with toxic false information. So the best of intentions, regardless, can still make false information still false. So all I did is move this to this slot, and now when we turn it back on, it should boot back into Windows again with no BIOS changes, with Secure Boot off. And when we run Crystal Disk Mark, what do you think our score is going to be? Anybody want to guess? Let's get back over to the desktop here. They should be twice whatever we were seeing. So if it was by 2, and now we're going by 4, 2 times trying to think of a good explanation, a good metaphor. 4 is twice as much as 2 is, right? So in theory, whatever speeds we were getting on the other slot at times 2, Gen 3, if this slot supports Gen 3 times 4, we should see double those numbers. But we know that Gen 3 can get to 3,600, and twice those other numbers was only 2,400, 2,500. So that means we're not really getting the full saturation of Gen 3 by 4 because we know the drive can go 7,000, 7,100, 7,200 megabytes a second in a Gen 4 by 4 slot. So it's not the drive that's holding us up. That's inherent into the chipset and the CPU at this price range, okay? So if you want that, spend more. But at least we know, because they're not forthcoming on that. So once again, let me go full screen over here for me, and let's run Crystal Disk Mark. Oops, didn't mean to click that one. This is the one I want. Let's just do the read and write tests. Remember, that's the only drive we've got plugged in, so we can't be, accidentally picking the wrong drive. I've done that too. All right, so 3,400 is very, very close to saturating 3,600. That's within tolerance of what is considered normal operation of maximum allowable speeds of a sequential read through generation 3 by 4 NVMe speeds. SATA 3, your maximum theoretical is 600, but you'll never see 600. Even the write speed is also holding up perfectly. And all we did was move the slot. So that tells you that's a limitation of the chipset, which is related to the limitation of that particular CPU. That's why I do this job, because I'm not aware of anybody else who does this. You watch any other mini PC reviews, who else is going to point this out? As far as I can tell, I'm the only one on the entire YouTubes. I'm the only one crazy enough to care to get to this level of detail, because everybody else wants to make commercials. And you know what? I hope it stays that way, because that's what gets me out of bed and makes me want to do this job. I don't want to repeat what somebody else already did, but I want you to be aware. If you haven't noticed, find me another channel that does this, because I would love to subscribe to them. As far as I can tell, they don't exist. And if nobody else is going to do it, hey, I got no problem stepping in and taking care of it myself. In fact, I very much look forward to it. Since nobody else wants to do it, I'm like Mikey, he's not going to eat it. He hates everything. He likes it. He likes it. Well, if he likes it, we'll all like it. All right. Aren't we all Mikey in some way in our lives where we're willing to take on things other people won't? And then once we succeed at it, they go, oh, let me do that now. Now that you've gone first, you were the brave one. I find that humorous because it's nothing about bravery. It's just about having an open mind and a willingness to take a look and try, see for yourself, and all the other people staring and watching. It's going to happen. He liked it. All right, well then pour me a bowl of that Life cereal too, if Mikey likes it. So, all right, what have we learned? Well, I think you get a lot for your money on this, honestly. The CPU, like I said, it's sitting somewhere between, in my mind, a very high-end budget machine or a very low-end mid-range. So my preference is to refer to this as an entry-level mid-range because I feel like that's a more fair assumption. Based on the CPU, what you typically see in budget machines are far more limited than that CPU. Fewer cores, one NVMe slot, one RAM slot, stuff like that. In fact, this has dual DIMMs. It's not soldered down. You're not getting into the higher end stuff. So basically, what they're offering for the money here seems like a really fair deal. It's not a steal. It's not like they're giving away the shop. But at the same time, they're not overcharging people and taking advantage, in my opinion. With regards to reliability and support, we've had no issues with Camrui. If and when we do, and we have to undertake that, we'll let you know. And if you have an experience, good or bad, with Camrui, please share it with us. I don't want you to just quote somebody online. If it's not your own personal experience, I don't want to hear about it. That's just gossip. And I'm not in high school anymore, man. Come on. But if you have a personal experience, be it good or bad, I don't care. All I care about is you actually experienced it. We so much appreciate if you share that with us. If somebody else has an experience, let them tell it, not you. All right. I think that's it for today's video. We'll have to revisit this on a part 2 because the question then remains, if we wanted to reinstall Windows, where would we get the drivers? Because I don't even see this model on their website. That gives us a few days to reach out to their PR company and say, listen, we're going to make another part of this video review, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to be fully transparent with them. We're going to go online, and we're going to look for the drivers for this. Can you tell us where they are and why they're not on your website so we can explain it to our audience? If we don't get an answer or we don't get an acceptable answer, we're going to do it anyway. I think it's very reasonable for an American customer buying a brand new product from Amazon to have the ability to download their drivers from the manufacturer's support website. And while that might be acceptable to not provide drivers to customers in other countries, if you want to do business in America, this is what Americans expect at a minimum. We need information on how to reach you for support, which they did a really good job at. They've got the sticker on the bottom of the unit with their contact information for support. Perfect. But when you go to their website, we can't find this model. It should be in there. Even if they don't make it, it should be in like some sort of historical record to say, you know, these are, let's say, legacy models. It's not there. That's concerning. Because how else are you going to find the drivers if you can't find the model of the computer? Where are you going to get them from? Usually the manufacturers will provide a download for a complete operating system reinstall, which I do not recommend ever. But they usually still offer it. They may offer a BIOS update, and they may offer a driver, well, they should offer driver update. Not driver updates, just drivers in general if you wanted to wipe and reinstall with your own copy of Windows. This is an international copy of Windows 11. I want an American specific copy. So I don't want to use their image. And it's not even being offered regardless. So where is it? So we'll pose those questions to them. It'll probably take us a week or so to get back to this. And that's how much time they'll have to get back to us. They usually respond within a day. But if for whatever reason the response is too bad, so sad, we'll let you know, good or bad, and we're going to do it anyway. We don't need them. But when you're paying for a brand new machine, it would be reasonable to expect you should not have to recreate the wheel. They obviously know what drivers this needs. Why aren't they sharing that with us? We want to know why. And if they are sharing it, how come we can't find them? And then we'll pass that on to you. So watch for part 2 on the Camrui Pinova P1 review. This is why these reviews are so deep and so thorough, and oftentimes why other content creators won't do this. This is a huge time commitment for such an inexpensive computer, but it's available. It may be a very good buy. I'm going to leave that for you to decide, but I want all the information to fully understand what to expect if you buy it. Meaning, if you've got to go somewhere else to get the drivers, then where? We're going to tell you. If there is a place to go to get the drivers, or rather, if there is no place to get the drivers, then what do? I'm going to share that with you too. But the average person doesn't know how to do all of this stuff. So I can teach you how to do it if you find yourself in this situation so you're not stuck. On the other hand, I shouldn't have to. The manufacturer should put me out of work. It'd say, Carey doesn't need to make a video on this. We've already got it covered on our website. We don't need Carey to take care of our customers. We do that. Well, that's what I want to hear. Is that what we're going to hear? I'll let you know. We'll send them the email, very kind, professional email. Say, sincerely, we want to change this out. We want to reinstall the OS. We can't find the model on the website. We can't find any drivers. We can't find any images. Are they there and we're not seeing them? Or do they not exist? What advice do you, please advise us on how to proceed. Let's see what they say. And then based on that, we've got something to look forward to in part 2 that I think should be an interesting video either way. Let me check out the chat room one last time, and we're going to wrap it up for today. Looks like Michael in the chat mentioned Secure Boot. I'm just seeing that now. You were dead on correct, Michael. Andy mentions, I don't think this chip from AMD will support Gen 3. It appears you are correct, Andy, but it still will run Gen 4 at Gen 3 speeds. But I see many of the community already ahead of me. I'm just catching up to your comments now. Mark Gaines renewed his membership today. Also a member now, 48 months. Thank you, Mark. Cheers, my friend. He says, I got back from looking for a new car. I just bought a Peugeot 508 station wagon. You guys call it a station wagon, or do you call it a, what do they call that in Britain? A four-door sedan is a saloon. A station wagon, I think, is an American term. In the UK, it's called an estate. Is that what it's called, an estate? Andy says you can't expect steak on a hamburger budget. You can expect it. You may not get it, and you may be disappointed, but you can absolutely expect it. Cracks me up. Arnold wants to know, why was Secure Boot the problem? So Secure Boot creates a security key between the BIOS and the drive, so that if anybody were to try to steal that drive or replace it, that the system won't function properly because the requirement to boot is no longer being met. It's stopping at a BIOS level. And so we can go in and turn that off. It's a security issue that probably doesn't affect home users. Mark Gaines says it's called an estate, Carey. You got it right. Look at me go. My worldwide knowledge having never left Arizona. I learned it all virtually. Now, remembering it, that's a different problem. Well, congrats on the new car, Mark. Always fun to get a new car, isn't it? Steve says drivers are on their site under support. Oh, are they? Well, maybe save us an email then. If I can't find the machine, you know what I mean? Like, let me show you. Let's go to their website. And I'll show you why I came to this conclusion. Wait a minute. I want this one. Okay. So we would go to Download Center. See, here's the thing. If we go to the Camrui link and we look for Penova series, there's no P1 here. We have the E3B. Why does it say E3B here and here? This is an E3B for 369, and this is an E3B. Why do they have the same? This is a Ryzen 7 5825, and this is what? A Ryzen 7 7430. Why do they have the same model name? Which drivers would be for which one? Well, we've already covered the E3B in the past, but where's the P1? Not here. But you're right, you could go to support, maybe it's under the Download Center. Let's go to the Download Center. There's the E1 and the E2, the H1, and then there's only one E3B. I don't see a P1. Now look, I'm going to do what the customer's going to do. So what I want to know is, where the heck did you find P1? Did you find it right away, or have you been digging for the last 2 hours and you finally stumbled on it? Because it should be right here. So what are you seeing differently than me? I also want you to notice these names here, Camrui and Nopogi. That's the same company. In fact, if we go over here and type in Mini PC Union, this is the official support site for these brands. Cetone, Nopogi, and this is probably Germany, Britain, And then the Camrui, Ace Magic in Germany, the UK, Ace Magic and Ace Magician. These are all the same company up here, okay? Just so you know. So if I wanted to find the drivers for the P1, I could just search for it. P1 drivers. Look at how fast that was. It says the driver download for the P1 3300U. We don't have the 3300U. We have that Ryzen. So that's the other thing we could look under is the processor is. Forgot already. Pull out my other glasses and I can read the sticker on the bottom of the machine here. It's an R2544. So we go here, R2544. And I have to spell it correctly. And there's where other people who find their way to Mini PC Union can go to get support from the community and the manufacturer. Both can reply. And I got no answers here. That's just 2 posts on the whole site. So there's no answer there. Let me get back over to the chat and see if that commenter can tell us where they found drivers. Because they said they were on the support site. So what support site? Go to store, then support. So there's 2 different supports. Let's go take a look. Go to store, okay. Then go to support and drivers and download. What? Okay, this is a problem. Regardless of how we get to support, it should take us to this page because this is obviously much more thorough, more populated. It should not take us to a separate site. That we talk about doubling the amount of work you've got and confusing your customer. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for pointing this out. There's the P1 right there. What's available under downloads? Nothing, just P1 and P2 driver.zip download. 1.4 gig, that's not bad. Download anyway, it's too big to scan for viruses. And 1 download in progress. Okay, well, that does give us a more informed email question to send, which is, why are there 2 different support links on the same site? Are they aware of it? Did somebody overlook that? There's no reason to duplicate your work, just have one forward to the other one. Real easy solution for that. That's good to know. And again, this should be transparent and obvious. If you want to avoid support calls and you want to make your customers, if your customer is willing to do the work, and all you have to do is provide them the tools, why are you making the tools so hard to find? You want the support calls? Not at this price, you don't. Customer doesn't want to wait. Customer, if they're willing and they have the knowledge, why would you withhold information from them or make them look for it? Not every customer wants to do this on their own. Those customers are still going to say, hey, how do I do this? And you're going to have to walk them through it. We're not talking about those customers. We're talking about informed customers like our viewers here. What are they supposed to do? So I think that's a question to be asked. So I can't thank you enough for pointing that out, because I'm sure they would have told us and we would have gotten there, but you just sped that whole thing up, got me there quicker. So thank you for sharing that with me. And with that, we're right at the 3-hour mark, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you to Camrui for sending us the unit. Thank you for all our viewers in green for making these videos possible. Shout out to our friend Buster for his continuous support and generosity. And even the person who told us, Steve Gearlings there, says, yeah, that should be easier. Well, it's not a question of easier, it's a question of clearer. Why are there 2 support locations that point to 2 different places? I don't mind having the support option listed in other web pages of their main page, but no matter which one I click on should take me to one support page, not one support page if you clicked here and a different support page if you click support on a separate link on the same master page. It's not like we went to another website. We just clicked a different link within the same website that says support, and you'd think they both point to the same place, and they don't. And that's where the problem is. Mark Baggett said, great show. Well, thank you, Mark. Flattery will get you everywhere. And thank you for your membership. 36 plus months Mark has been a member. He's probably close to 48. See, the number that appears after their name is provided by YouTube. And once you get like month 1, you get month 2, and then it goes month 6, then month 12, then 24, 36, 48. So he won't see that number 36 change for 12 months if he continues membership, which I hope he will. And he could be just days or weeks away from that turning into a 48. So that's awesome, and I can't thank you enough for that. Andy says, thank you, Carey and Mara. And yeah, it looks like the Nano KVM got another update, firmware update, but not the Nano KVM Pro. That's been sort of quiet on updates. And if you have a regular Nano KVM, you might want to update it. I think of that when I talk to Andy. If you have questions and I didn't see them, or you're watching this video after it's aired live and did not interact with me, leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. So we will email Camrui and ask them, regarding the support and the drivers, why, if they're even aware that these 2 support links on the same site go to different places. With regards to the specifications, not detailing the M.2 speeds and limitations of each slot, that's pretty common in this industry. I don't agree with it, but they're not doing anything unusual. It would just be a breath of fresh air to see a manufacturer come forward and say, these are what these slots can do, rather than omitting that information. I'll bet you if we look at Amazon and we look at the specs, it does not say anything other than the capacity of the drive. I bet it doesn't say it's NVMe or SATA or what speed. They just don't mention it because it's nothing they want to talk about. So when you're looking at a website like this, right, an Amazon listing, and you notice that it says storage, 512 gig M.2 SSD. Okay, well, that could mean 500 megabytes. It could mean 15,000 megabytes per second, or 12,000, 13,000 if it's Gen 5 by 4. I don't think that's an oversight. I think that's intentional. We don't want to brag that we put the cheapest SATA drive in here, that it's not NVMe, but an average consumer might just assume M.2 means fast. No, it does not automatically mean fast. I mean, fast compared to a hard drive, yes, but fast compared to other M.2, not so much. So the information, if you look at the details, probably, I'm going to guess because I haven't read it, probably says nothing about NVMe or SATA. What it says is the 512 gig M.2 ensures fast boot ups and high-speed data access, trusted by hundreds of businesses and educational for its speed and expandability. Well, M.2 does have speed and expandability, but as we see, they have 2 M.2s, and they're not equal. One is slower than the other one.
One is SATA compatible and one isn't. One is by 2 speeds, one is by 4 speeds. They don't detail that here. I wonder why. But it's not like they're ripping anybody off. It's a fair price for what you're getting. I just wish they would be more open and honest about exactly what to expect. Because I could imagine they probably get some returns from people that figure this out and go, I don't like this, and they return it. And I'd rather pay a little extra for another model of mini PC for those people that it's important to. And they feel a little bit, at least I would feel like you misled me by not disclosing it. And they could say, well, we didn't say one way or the other. Everything we said is true. Yes, but you failed to tell us information that for some of us is quite important. And they'd say, well, you could have asked. This is typically the way these conversations go with the manufacturers. I shouldn't have to ask. You should provide it. Why did you omit it? My guess is if I have to ask, I'm going to assume you omitted it because you don't want people to know. But what do I know? And again, you're going to have a couple generations behind on your Wi-Fi. Given it's Wi-Fi 5, it's not 6, it's not 6E, it's not 7. It's Bluetooth 4.2, it's not 5 or 5.2 or 5.4. So you're several generations behind. But at this price point, that's how they're able to make it cheaper. And most people that are buying at this price point don't have other things that are Wi-Fi, like routers and Bluetooth devices that are going to be super high-end anyway, right? Those things don't usually go together. The buyer of something budget is probably plugging it into everything else in their life that's budget. And somebody who's got the money or the enthusiasm to spend more because they're into it would know exactly what they're buying, and it wouldn't be an issue because it wouldn't be up their alley anyway. So in that case, I'm glad that they at least specified which Wi-Fi they have. If only they would have done that with the M.2 slots, that would have been helpful. Because the thing is, when you go to the website and we look for the drivers, I still don't see a manual. Where do I download the owner's manual from? Because this download button only takes us to drivers. There's no system image to download. There's no manual to download that might explain these specifications. It's not there. And if it's not under support, where would it be? All right, so I have some concerns. They're not real big deals, but just suggestions for improvement and clarity to avoid confusion and to help customers fully understand what to expect so nobody is surprised or blindsided with a result they weren't expecting. If you make sure you meet your customers' expectations that you set yourself, then you will always have a happy customer. All right, well, that's it for your sermon in today's Sunday special. And thanks to Mara for creating our thumbnail and all the work she does in the background, including answering, responding, reading, and replying to your emails. If you want to email us, we'd love to hear from you. That's our email address right there on the screen. It's not a bother. Say hello. You want to share an experience and you don't want to post it publicly, you need some help, reach out to us. We'll do what we can, member or not. We try and help everybody. We just prioritize members first, but after that, and then we go through the rest of the emails, and we'll do our best to provide a solution. Even if it's another link to another video that has your answer, why recreate the wheel? We'll provide the link to you. Sometimes we don't know the answer either, but it doesn't hurt to ask and doesn't bother us one bit. So if you want to reach out, again, being fully transparent, I want you to know how you can reach me. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you to all of our members who make these videos possible. And thank you to everybody hanging out in the chat room. Whether you're a member or not, it's a pleasure having you here. We're so glad that you decided to spend your time with us as a like-minded community, sharing a passion that we all seem to enjoy and have enthusiasm for. It is a pleasure to have all of you here, and I thank each and every one of you for sharing your Sunday with me. That's going to wrap it up for today. We will schedule this for a part 2 in about a week or so, give or take. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more mini PCs waiting for review. So tomorrow will be our members only video, and that's for all of our friends in green only. Those videos are never made public, and it's just a benefit of membership. And those videos get much smaller views, and they're not quite as crowded in the chat room. They're more informal. They're more like friends hanging out. You want to hang out with friends? Support us so that we can afford the hangout. Somebody's got to pay for the clubhouse, is all I'm saying. And then, of course, we're back on our regular schedule. Wednesday, we've got a show scheduled. Friday, we've got a show scheduled. And Sunday. So unless things come in and arrive in mail or for repair, diagnostics, or new orders, we'll continue to review other minis, including a follow-up on the, what is it? The Minis Forum. Hold on, I still have the empty box. The M1 Lite, I have to do a follow-up on that. And since that one came first, then its part 2 will come first. Then this part 2, the next opportunity will be next. And so the show queue is built up in the order of when it was reviewed, so that we're not monopolizing any one manufacturer, because they're not paying us for this. Those people in green are paying us for this. Everybody else, including the manufacturers, they're getting all this for free because of the people in green. All right, so I just want to emphasize how important they are to our channel. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see the members tomorrow. We'll see everybody else on Wednesday, 1 o'clock Pacific time, our regular start time. I hope you'll join us then. Until next time, bye for now.